flooded not only by the free agents, but by players who are put in play as trade bait as well.
That's what makes it so enticing to go out and throw a bunch of cash at this guy.
We're talking about what he can bring, a lot of intangibles.
Whew. Man, you look at the free agents available. I mean, these are good players.
Musical chairs is coming, guys. I'm telling you.
Happy Canada Day, everyone, and welcome to Free Agent Frenzy here on TSN. And like always, when we have a big game, we start with the coach, who is standing by with Mark Masters.
Craig, new experience for you today, new teammates. What are your expectations?
Very low. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not sure. I mean, we're just going to go in there and see how it goes, you know. I mean, new experience for myself, and we'll see where it goes.
No James Duthie this year. He usually eats up a lot of minutes on this broadcast. How do you guys fill the void?
I don't think you can fill the void. He's been a great pro for a long time and done a very good job of what he does, so I don't see anybody filling that void.
Well, Brian Hayes gets the call-up. A lot of talk about whether he is ready for this moment. You know what Canadian markets can be like. What's your sense of him?
Under a lot of pressure today, for sure. So he's got a big job to do.
Lots of pressure, big shoes to fill, but it's all good because, as you can see, the cast and crew is here and accounted for, and we are ready for Free Agent Frenzy here on TSN. And once again, happy Canada Day to everyone out there. As we like to say here at TSN, happy match day -3 as our boys move towards the round of 16 down at the World Cup, and we march towards free agency here in the NHL. Yes, James Duthie is not here, but it's all good. A lot of pressure, like you said, Craig, but I'm feeling comfortable.
You'll handle it well.
We'll be fine. I'm feeling comfortable. I think we're all feeling relaxed because the muscle is here. It's great to see you, Craig Berube.
That's right.
Stepping in. We appreciate it. Mike Johnson, great to see you. The O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Cheryl Pounder. And again, the cast and crew, as we said, is here and accounted for. Gino's here with the goalie panel. Laura's here with Craig and with Frankie. And it has been a crazy couple of weeks in the NHL. It was crazy last night. It's been crazy this morning. And it will undoubtedly be crazy come free agency in just under an hour. So to set the scene on what we can expect later this afternoon, let's head to the breakers and the insiders standing by with Gord Miller. Gord?
All right, Brian. First of all, this is feeling more like Trade Center Day. We have 2 deals to talk about, including the Toronto Maple Leafs have traded Nick Robertson. Correct?
Yeah, about 2 years after it was rumored. But yes, it finally happened for Nick Robertson going to the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're still awaiting details on what the Leafs get in return. But they qualified him, obviously, before this, and therefore made him an asset. And now he's off to Pittsburgh. Kyle Dubas knows him.
Yeah, so reunited with Kyle Dubas. We'll get to the other trade in a moment. But first of all, we're going to talk about a player who is not a free agent. And that is a guy whose contract expires next year, defenseman Zach Werenski of the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Yeah, he's got, it's been an emotional 24 hours, I would say, for Werenski and the Blue Jackets. And look, you almost have to go back to where this started to get a sense of how we're here. And after the season, there were some open conversations about the future. Werenski actually has 2 more years left on his deal. And, at that time wasn't ready to commit to a future. And he wasn't making a trade request, but it's kind of spiraled and gone sideways here in the last few weeks. And yesterday he was presented with the option to waive his no-move clause to go to the Dallas Stars. He declined. And now we're kind of in no man's land, I would say, because of the emotion. And so, really, I think there needs to be a conversation where they get things back on the track, the Blue Jackets and the Werenski camp. Not certain where this goes from here. Could even include him going back to Columbus. But, I think they have to kind of get through this period and see if they can pick up the pieces.
Well, there's no shortage of interest. And just to clean up the Robertson trade to Pittsburgh, that's for a 4th-round draft pick going to the Toronto Maple Leafs. But clearly there'd be no shortage of interest in Zach Werenski as a Norris Trophy winner. But he ultimately will determine the direction of how this negotiation goes and ultimately where his new address is. The Toronto Maple Leafs definitely in that 1-2 scenario with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, I learned earlier today, I mean, when you think of what Toronto might be willing to put into a deal for Zach Werenski to send to the Columbus Blue Jackets, automatically you think, well, it has to be Matthew Knies and something else. Well, there is a scenario where Matthew Knies would not be included in a trade if Werenski is willing to go to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that conjures up all sorts of potential possibilities of the future. Is it Cowan? Is it Danford? Go down the list.
Well, and I would just say this, that I know as of this morning, I think the Blue Jackets were hoping that at some point there could be a change of heart with Zach Werenski and Dallas. I don't see it happening, but certainly that was part of the conversation as of this morning, is whether emotions can cool down and whether there's a second thought on this. I just don't see it coming. I think that the player knows what he wants.
And, you know, here you talk about that's a year away for Werenski. The Carolina Hurricanes just won the Cup last month. And Darren, you think they might be one of the most active players in the market?
Well, look, I mean, when you win the Stanley Cup, it's almost intoxicating, right? And it becomes addictive. And anybody who knows Tom Dundon, the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, know that he's going to pull out every stop to try and repeat. So you've got John Carlson, who they acquired the rights for. They've been down the path in negotiations, kind of waiting there and hold. He'd like to sign in Carolina. We've been talking about Alexander Nikishin being trade bait for the Carolina Hurricanes. I believe that deal is going to happen. I know the New York Rangers are among the teams most interested, but I believe he's likely ending up in the West. I know St. Louis was a contender for him as well. And what about Connor Hellebuyck? You know, I mean, the goaltending wasn't an issue for the Carolina Hurricanes in the Stanley Cup final. Freddie started, Bussy ended. They celebrate that championship, but I think Carolina is one of those teams that looks the stability in the future Hall of Famer of Connor Hellebuyck. I'm not saying that, you know, it's going to get done by any stretch, but I know that there's been communication. It's something we're watching.
Pierre, let's talk about some vintage players. Let's talk oldies but goodies. Claude Giroux and Patrick Kane.
Couple of big names. Patrick Kane informed Detroit yesterday that he was going to market while keeping the Red Wings, while keeping that door open as well. And I don't know that Patrick Kane's going to be in a hurry. It may not be a July 1st signing. I think he wants to see what's out there. Claude Giroux also informing the Ottawa Senators that he was going to market on this day while also keeping the Ottawa Senators' door open. I will just say this. I believe that one of the teams that will make a heavy push for Claude Giroux is the Philadelphia Flyers, where obviously he started and played a lot of his career. I think the Flyers will try and sign him. There'll be other teams interested for Claude Giroux, who had another good year.
And we've got to run real quick, but CJ, we always talk about offer sheets as a possibility, and there's a trade today that kind of had potentially went off.
Exactly. Maverick Bourque goes from Dallas to Nashville in a trade for a couple draft picks. Ilya Lyubushkin going over to the Predators as well. And that's a trade entirely motivated, not because Dallas wants to get rid of a good young player, but it was a good young player they were going to have trouble signing with some of the other business that they have ongoing, including trying to get Jason Robertson extended. And so Maverick Bourque, instead of potentially being a threat for an offer sheet, goes to Nashville, and the Predators do expect to get him signed.
All right, Brian, we'll send it back to you, but a reminder that the NHL's all-time leading goal scorer is an unrestricted free agent today, Alexander Ovechkin, likely not to go anywhere else.
Okay,
right.
Good to hear. And as you said, a lot going on here with free agency, but really it feels like Trade Center in a way, because the NHL's unofficial second trade deadline kicked into high gear June 19th when Tampa Bay and Toronto made a sign-and-trade deal involving Darren Radish. 2 days later, the Senators made a blockbuster uniting Brady Tkachuk with his brother Matthew down in Florida, and the deals have kept on going right up to yesterday with the Panthers acquiring goalie Jacob Markstrom from New Jersey. So tons going on. Obviously, there will be signings, guys, but it's really been more about Trade Center ever since the Cup was handed out. What do you make of it?
Well, I think teams are positioning themselves for whatever comes next, and also acknowledging the free agent crop, unrestricted free agent crop this year is not deep, it's not strong. So teams jumped on the tucks and get them out of the way early. But the better option is to trade for a guy, sign him early, not compete with other teams today, and get ahead of the curve, because trying to get guys at noon today is going to be tough to get impactful players.
It's going to be fascinating to see how the day plays out, Hayes, because we're entering a new world in the NHL with the money that's being allotted to these players, and I think they all deserve it. But this crop of free agents, it's not the greatest in the world. So our GMs, everyone has had a cliche in the last 10 years where it's like, put your feet up on July 1st and then maybe wait afterwards. But with this crop of players, it's going to be fascinating to see how much money they can get, but it's not the best. We're also entering an era with star players. We're seeing players like Brady Tkachuk, Zach Werenski. They want to go play somewhere else. So that movement is going to be fascinating to track as well.
Well, and the interesting part for me, too, is going to be returns, because the no movement clauses, the no trade clauses for some of these athletes, and there's so much control right there. But for me, I'm really looking at the goalie market right now. You see Markstrom move. Now all of a sudden New Jersey's open. You see now all of a sudden he comes over to Florida, so you know Bob's on the move. So big question marks around there in terms of the goalie market and the teams that need goaltenders.
Absolutely. And we're talking some pretty heavy hitters here, like the reigning Norris winner, Craig, could be pushing his way out of Columbus. How big of an impact would he make on the team?
Huge. I mean, he's the #1 defenseman, you know, National Hockey League, touches all areas, great power play guy, you know, can play 25 minutes plus a night, so whoever can get their hands on him, it's a huge upgrade.
Yeah, and again, we just saw there Zach Werenski, Connor Hellebuck could be out there, Dylan Larkin. Like, Larkin made the first request, and he's sitting here
could
waiting
be
to
out
see.
there. They're already out there. They're on the,
exactly.
You know, whether it happens today or not. I'm always curious, though, on a day like today, is a coach in the room saying, I'd like Werenski? Find a way to get it. How much are you around?
I've been in the room quite a bit over the years, and you know, you're involved in it, but you're you know, standing your ground a little bit. You let your guys, your pro scouts, your manager do their job, and if a player comes up, they'll ask you, like, do you like this guy? Where does he fit in? How do you feel about him? Those are the questions that are asked to the coach.
Well, and I'm assuming it would flip the other way too. The pieces going out. How do you feel about those guys going out the door as well?
Well, it's interesting where they're at right now. If you think of someone like a franchise defenseman in Werenski, they don't come around all the time. So now all of a sudden the opportunity is presenting itself right now. And are you going to go all in? Also knowing, though, that the leverage there for Columbus, they don't have it, right? So now all of a sudden knowing, okay, is it Tampa Bay? You know, everyone in Toronto is paying attention right now, thinking that they could be part of it because there are some pieces that could go the other way, as the panel mentioned, whether it's going to be a or a Cowan, or could it be? But then you also have to ask yourself a question, is Toronto a winner? So he had said that he wanted to go to a team that he was going to have an opportunity to win at. Is Toronto that right now?
A lot of disappointed fan bases right now, because the NHL is morphing into a league where it's the haves and have-nots. And it seems like there's that 6 or 7, maybe 10 teams that everybody wants to go to. And some of these fan bases have got to be awfully disappointed. You look at Winnipeg. If Connor Hellebuck leaves Winnipeg, what are their other star players going to do? Because he's been such a massive part of what they're doing there, and all the winning that's gone on there. The trickle-down effect could be incredible for the Winnipeg Jets if that does happen.
And you wonder how much the trade market impacts the timing of the free agent market. So a team that wants Werenski can't get him to go to Rasmus Anderson or whoever might be next down their list. And do they try to go down that road, and maybe it slows down signing at noon right away as well? But I'll just say this, whether it's Toronto or anybody else, there's like 3 teams in the league where Zach Werenski wouldn't be their best defenseman.
Right.
So the idea, like, we can't trade our top prospect for Zach Werenski. I'm like, what? Of course you're going to trade your top prospect.
Agree 100%.
Because he's not going to get anything like what Zach Werenski is, whether it's 2 years or 2 years plus 6 more. So I would think that most teams should be bullishly in on a guy as good as Zach Werenski if he's willing to go there.
Absolutely. And it's pretty clear the players are living in like a 1-year bubble, right? So you can plan for 3 years, 5 years, whatever you want. The players may change that. So these are all potential trades that could be happening. But as we know, there is a long list of pending free agents. And to take us through the list here at TSN, we begin with Laura, who's standing by with Craig and Frankie.
Yeah, lots of questions. Obviously, we'll be seeing how that all unfolds throughout the day. But one thing we know is that we will be paying special attention to our top 50 UFAs list here, according to all of us here at TSN. Let's start with the top 5. And yeah, it might not be the flashiest of UFA classes this year, but there are some noteworthy names, Frankie.
Well, the biggest name is Sergei Bobrovsky. And listen, it feels like we're at the point where the Florida Panthers looked at this situation and says, we extracted as much as we possibly could from Sergei Bobrovsky, and we got 3 great playoff runs, we got 2 Stanley Cups, and now it's up to someone else to try and extract that. And there is a template out there for the Sergei Bobrovsky deal that is going to happen at some point. And I look at that Chris Tanev deal that he signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs. where that was a 6-year deal, and you said to yourself, he's really good in the moment. But years 4, 5, and 6, is he going to be there? Is he going to be available? And for Sergei Bobrovsky, there's probably a team out there that looks at it and says, we want one renaissance year. We need one more year out of him, and we'll figure the rest out later. It's just, who is that team?
Well, it could be Toronto, it could be Edmonton, it could be New Jersey. All those teams fit. You know, Stolarz was his teammate in Florida, and you start to think about where Sergei Bobrovsky could end up. I mean, he's a worker. He cares about his trade. I think he's a 45-game-a-year player, so you need a guy that can play with him. But I don't think there's any lack of interest in Sergei Bobrovsky.
There's also a little bit of a rebalancing act for Sergei Bobrovsky here when he goes to a different team. He's not going to be asked to play as much, or he shouldn't be asked to play as much. You can take back his minutes a little bit, and you can have another goaltender who can play a little bit more, and now that's your recalibration on this, you know, pushing 40 version of Sergei Bobrovsky.
37 years young, will turn 38 in September. So that was 1 to 5. We've got here now 6 to 10. Another name that you would like to discuss?
So Scott Laughton, because center ice right now in this free agent class, it's thin. It's players like Scott Laughton. Boone Jenner doesn't really play center anymore. And then you're talking about, you know, Eric Haula, Alex Kerfoot, Adam Henrique. So Scott Laughton is going to be at a premium because he can play in a third-line role. He can maybe give you a little more offense. We saw that when he went over to the Los Angeles Kings. He's a player who's going to have a lot of value today. And as we know, there's always teams looking for center ice players.
Yeah, Matt Zuccarello, I think the team that should be looking at him is Minnesota. Look what he did for Kaprizov. I mean, you don't realize sometimes what a player does until you don't have him anymore. And you start to think, they're letting Matt Zuccarello go? I wonder how Kaprizov feels about this, because he makes Kaprizov better. And then after that, a player that I think is underrated, maybe under the radar, is Mario Ferraro of the San Jose Sharks. This is a good player, a competitive player, not flashy, but solid.
Another player that should probably stay with the team where he's already at, because San Jose, all they're talking about is how they need defensemen, and he is a guy who has excelled playing with skilled D partners, and it's not an easy thing to do that. There's a little bit of an unpredictableness that goes with that, but he's able to handle that quite well.
T-minus 43 minutes until the bell rings, until it's go time. Hayes, is it too early for a hydration break? Like it's getting warm.
It's never too early. Warm. It's never too early for a hydration break. Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Today marks the first day in history the NHL salary cap reaches the triple-digit $1 million mark. It's officially at $104 million for the 26-27 season. That's an 8.9% increase from $95.5 million last season, and it's only going up from here, rising to $113.5 million in 27-28. As we can see, this is a far cry from the flat cap days when the cap sat at $81.5 million for 3 straight years. So that says a couple things to me. COVID's over. We're done.
Thankfully.
There's money out there. And if you can get your hands on it, you can have a big year, especially in a contract year, you're going to get paid.
O said it, though. I think whether it's us as analysts, whether it's teams, whether it's players, always recalibrating what players are worth. We're going to see third-line guys get $5 million a year.
I know, but what if those players, like they just listed off some players that I wouldn't be signing, period, to be quite honest with you, with all due respect for the players. So there might be some guys sitting around just looking for contracts because their demands are going to be high, and quite honestly, they don't bring a whole lot.
So delusional is what you're saying.
They might
some
players might, at the end of this day, be looking around saying, I don't have anything yet, because just because the money's gone up, it doesn't mean that some team's just going to say, oh yeah, the money's gone up, I'm just going to allot you this.
Well, a player who was going to make $3 million 2 years ago should now make $4 million. Right, based on the percentage of the cap growth, that's
simply
just
the numbers
math.
going up.
So if you were worth $3 million 2 years ago, you go get $4 million this year.
I know, but
now if you're worth nothing 2 years ago, then you get nothing this year.
There's been some big jumps, Johnny. Like Bowen Byram is set to be signing a contract, $12.5 million per year. I like the guy. I love the player. He seems like a complimentary piece. But 12.5, it's
he's making more than Dahlin now. And Buffalo pushed him out because Dahlin's the man.
Yeah.
Well, and with free agency right now, because it is a bit leaner, I'm wondering, you know, if it is a little bit quieter and these GMs say to themselves, listen, we don't really have an impact move here that's going to have a definitive impact on our roster. So do we hold some of that cap space? You know, if we're a contender, we're getting closer to the trade deadline, we want to hold some of it. So interesting to me how this is going to go.
Problem is everyone's got cap space.
Yeah.
Cap space, when you're the only one who has it, is a real asset. When everyone has it, not quite as much.
And the agents know it.
And the agents know it.
It's not going to matter. If you can improve your team, you're going to overpay for a guy. That's the way you look at it. You got the cash, you got the cap space. You know, the player might not be worth that money, but it doesn't matter. He's going to fill a void in our lineup. He's going to help our team. you know, we're going to pay him what we're going to pay him.
So a guy like Anthony Mantha.
And any term you give makes the contract so much more valuable. Bowen Byram, 4 years from now, 12 and a half, he'll be the 45th highest paid defenseman.
I might get paid $5 million.
Maybe. Hey?
What do you think?
Let's get you back on the ice.
I don't think you produced enough points to get that. Let's be honest with that.
You can count the PIMs.
Yeah, that's true. Penalty minutes, they get paid. You get paid for that. And it'll be interesting how we recalibrate with veteran players, too, right? Forever, it was league minimum if you want to go to a winning team. Is Patrick Kane going to take league minimum to go somewhere? Is Claude Giroux going to take league minimum?
I don't think either of those
Probably
guys
not.
would take. Yeah, they want $4 and $5 million contracts
easily.
because they're going to be saying all these other guys are making this money just because I'm old. Doesn't mean I'm going to settle for league minimum. No way.
You've also got a guy like Giroux. You know, what is he in the dot? Like 62%. So now all of a sudden you've got a guy that can come in and play a definitive role. You know, he's got that leadership quality as well. So yeah, I don't think they're going to take a haircut.
They'll take the money. They just won't get the term. And that's okay when you're at that age.
Does that make sense, Greg?
It does. Situational guys.
Yep.
You know, a lot of these guys are situational guys. Like Giroux, he's great in a face-off circle. He killed penalties for Ottawa. He can run a power play. We all know that. He wasn't on the top unit in Ottawa because they have stars there, but he can still go in and run a power play. So it's situational for him.
John Carlson was another interest. I thought he was going to kind of like just fade away and maybe.
No, not happening.
He is not fading away.
He's got a market.
Like a team traded for his rights, and now they're talking about the deals. It's like,
he's got a market, and he's getting paid. Speaking of markets, the goaltending panel is waiting for us because there is a goaltending carousel happening in the league right now. We just saw Frankie and Craig and Laura run through the list. Sergei Bobrovsky might be at the top of that. So let's get to the boys, starting with Gino. Gino?
All right, Hazer, listen, at the end of the day, we're going to decide who are the winners and losers. To figure out who the winners and losers are, we got to figure out what they're looking for and did they get it. To talk about it from a goaltending front, Marty Biron, Jay McLennan, and Weeksy joins us from goaltender headquarters. When you run down the list of teams that need a goalie, the Oilers, Leafs, Sens, Wings, Devils, Pens. Let's start with the Toronto Maple Leafs, Marty. Are the Leafs a team that desperately needs a real number one?
Well, when that little ball came up number 12 and Matt Sundin had the big smile on his face, it kind of triggered the, we got to get something going this year. We're going to have the number 1 overall pick. We got to get some moves. They got the Radish move. Who knows about Werenski? And now you got to focus on goaltending. I think that Stolarz would be a good number 1 goalie if he was healthy and if he could stay healthy, but he doesn't. So you may have to go and look at a Bobrovsky. And this should be a short-term thing because you got Akhtiamov and Hildeby, but I focus on Akhtiamov for the future. So maybe if you think, hey, we have the team now that can compete in one of the best division in hockey, the Atlantic Division, with Sergei Bobrovsky, we could compete with Florida, we could compete with Montreal, we could compete with Buffalo, we can compete with Ottawa. Like, then you got to make the deal. You got to say, what will it take? As long as it's not, let's not get crazy on a 37, going to be 38-year-old goaltender and give him 5 or 6 years. But if you think in a couple years, maybe stretch it to 3. I think you got to make the deal.
I think you heard Frankie talk about the Chris Tanev deal. Yeah. And it might be something like that. And you and I were arguing off air. You say, you can't give a 38-year-old term. I go, Brent Burns and his snakes and whatever he's got going in his backpack. I mean, this guy's 41 years old and they just signed him. I mean, why can't Bobrovsky play well into his 40s as well? So I think Bobrovsky's going to get a 4-year deal from whoever gives it to him. And I think, again, he's not going to be playing 60 games. It's 45 games. But keep in mind, there's 84 games next season, not 82. So you need goaltenders to bridge the gap.
All right, Groundhog Day. The goalie panel is together, and we're talking about the Oilers desperately in need of some help in net.
Again.
Who'd have seen this coming? Weeksy, how desperately do the Oilers need, I was going to say a real number 1, a real goalie?
I think they need one desperately. And for Tristan Jarry, yes, have a huge summer off the ice and on the ice to get ready for the season. But the Edmonton Oilers, they're on the clock. The clock has started. Forget the Northern Lights up in Edmonton right now. Forget the fact that the Stampede is going on in Calgary right now. The Oilers are on the clock. Connor McDavid watch. To me, they should have had Sergei Bobrovsky. I was told they weren't necessarily interested in him at the trade deadline. What? What world do we live in? That's a guy that they need. A future Hall of Famer. Take it away, fellas. I'm done.
I agree. I think Bobrovsky has to be coming out of the words in Edmonton, in Toronto. You're looking at teams that do need him. Bobrovsky would fit the bill because, again, Jari, it's a tandem situation. So Jari's going to play 40 games. You can have Bobrovsky play 45. Again, what is the cost of doing business, though?
Yeah, Bobrovsky could be linked to New Jersey, to L.A.,
Toronto,
to Edmonton, to Toronto. There's
Detroit.
a lot there. The one thing, though,
LA.
is with the hiring of Babcock and Edmonton.
As well.
Carolina, too.
Carolina as well. You know, he's been tough on goalies in the past, so we'll see. Like, he needs somebody that's going to be a sure thing in Edmonton for them to have success.
It's a good time to be Sergei Bobrovsky looking for a new deal because someone's going to overpay and give him more years than he deserves because there is a huge need out there right now. Hazy?
All right, thank you, boys. And TSN Free Agent Frenzy, we are off and running. We use that term a lot on Overdrive. We figured, shameless plug, we'll bring it in here. But Craig Berube's with us. Unbelievable career. Can't wait to have you riding shotgun with us throughout the show. And we got a lot to get into today, right? We're under an hour from free agency officially opening up. TSN Free Agent Frenzy continues here on TSN.
Berube, the rookie, called up. Well, you can make an instant name.
Jay Miller on a quick, though. Oh, boy. Both of them are getting the shots to the head.
Pass to Berube, shot.
I think Berube's a good coach. I think he's an inspiring coach. I think he's a communicator. I think he's a motivator.
And there is Craig Berube. Oh.
Free Agent Frenzy is presented by Harvey's. Summer just got hotter with Harvey's. Burgers, shakes, snacks, and more are all just $3. Harvey's, it's a beautiful thing.
A reminder that the NHL payroll ceiling in 26-27 is $104 million. And according to our friends at Puckpedia.com, Vancouver and Calgary entered July 1st with a Canadian team high of $21 million in cap space. Vancouver has one open spot. Edmonton has a Canadian team low of $7 million in cap space with 5 open roster spots. As we welcome in our Eastern reporters, we're going to go through the country, of course, this morning prior to getting to noon Eastern. And there's Mark Masters, who has made it to Etobicoke after catching up with his old friend Craig Berube. Great seeing you, Mark. Kenzie in Montreal, Bruce in Ottawa. And Mark, the Leafs have been very active. They've had a pretty crazy couple of weeks. What do you expect once we get to 12 noon?
Yeah, Brian, it's already been a really busy offseason in Toronto. Of course, new leadership brought in, John Chayka and Matt Sundin, and they just picked first overall at the draft. Gavin McKenna coming in. That's created a spark in the organization. You know Austin Matthews has to be excited about that as a new playmaking elite winger enters the organization. But a lot of the focus for the new management team has been on reshaping the blue line. Of course, Darren Radish coming in, Emile Andre coming in, Simon Benoit, Brandon Carlo being traded away. So the defense has been changed. In terms of free agency, Chayka says they're going to focus on depth. Clearly, you know, they are willing to make some swings, he says, but they're not going to mortgage the future. You look at the depth chart, there seems to be a need up front, even before trading Nick Robertson. And like so many teams, the Leafs certainly look like they could use some help down the middle of the ice. Now, for more on the Montreal Canadiens, let's join Kenzie Lalonde.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Welcome to Habs development camp going on behind me here as Habs fans are eager to see the next generation of talent as Habs management has said goodbye to one of their long leaders in Brendan Gallagher, making sure he landed with his hometown team, the Vancouver Canucks. We're asking ourselves, when will they add? We know the Canadiens are going to make a move, but when? Last week, Ken Hughes mentioned that the Canadiens are not interested in just acquiring talent. They're looking for specific things. So what are those things? You have to think a top 6 forward, someone that can complement Ivan Demidov, or right shot defender so Lane Hudson can play his natural size. And as we've learned the last few years in playoff hockey for the Canadiens, size and physicality matters. The free agency pool is not the same as what could be acquired through trade, so we'll see if the Canadiens can find a trading partner and when a transaction may occur, as Canadian fans are learning that the buyers are not in control. With more on the Ottawa Senators, here's Bruce Garriock.
Thanks, Kenzie. It's quiet here at the Canadian Tire Center, but Steve Staios has done a lot of business in the last 10 days. He traded Captain Brady Tkachuk to the Florida Panthers. He acquired William Eklund from the San Jose Sharks, and he acquired winger Andre Burakovsky from the Chicago Blackhawks. Nick Cousins and Jordan Spence were both signed to new deals. But after acquiring the rights to backup goalie Samuel Ersson, the Senators did not give him a qualifying offer. I would expect that sometime after noon today, the Senators will announce that they have signed Ersson to a new 2-year deal to give them a solid backup behind Linus Ullmark. The Senators still need help up front. They could use some depth on defense, and of course, they could use some jam. The biggest surprise here is that I felt that getting Claude Giroux signed was going to be the equivalent of a 2-foot putt, one that you can't miss. Talks went into last night and they failed. And like you on the golf course later today, Brian, the Senators and Claude Giroux's camp missed that putt, and he'll test the market.
Wow, that's an unnecessary shot, Bruce. It's Canada Day, man. I thought we were all here acting like a team.
We're having a good time.
I haven't even played golf with Bruce. Man, ricochets. We're half an hour into the show, and I'm taking strays from Bruce in Ottawa. Anyway, I appreciate it, Bruce. Great to see you. I'm not sure it's reciprocated, but nonetheless, we're going to head out to the Western reporters here shortly. But we have another panel waiting for us. Laura's standing by with Carlo Koliakovo and Emily Kaplan. Laura?
It's golf game here for sure. Emily, let's start with you and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And, you know, we're a little over less than a week away from, or past the NHL draft, and before Gavin McKenna was selected first overall by the Toronto Maple Leafs, you were able to go to Penn State, caught up with him. What do you think his transition is going to be like going from the NCAA to the NHL now, and how can the Leafs kind of make that transition a little easier for him?
Well, Laura, I think it's going to be a seamless transition. We know the scrutiny that comes with being the #1 pick, especially in a market like Toronto, but Gavin McKenna is uniquely prepared for this. At Penn State, he was the biggest recruit in college hockey history. His first game, he's getting booed every time he touches the puck. The crowd is chanting overrated, and all he does is score the game winner with less than 2 minutes remaining and hits the forks down Selly in Arizona State. So you see that swagger. And typically a #1 pick goes to a bad team, but in Toronto, he doesn't have to be the guy. He's got Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Matthew Nyes, John Tavares, all guys that he can lean on and potentially live with, not to mention if they were able to sign Patrick Kane, who's his childhood idol. All of that sets him up for a pretty good position for success next season.
So all those boos, he'll be used to going to Ottawa and facing all of those Senators fans. And yeah, how great would that be for McKenna to have another former first overall pick to kind of bounce things off of there this upcoming season? Do you like the fit with Patrick Kane with the Leafs, or are there other players, Carlo, that perhaps you could see being a part of the Maple Leafs plan?
Yeah, I think anybody would welcome the fit. I mean, when you're looking at a guy like Patrick Kane, I think it's more of a luxury than a necessity. But when you talk about with Gavin McKenna, you know, for a guy that he grew up idolizing, I think it'd be pretty cool for him to play on the same ice, practice with the same guy, pick his brain a little bit on how he had as much success throughout his career to establish himself as a future Hockey Hall of Famer. And you look at the players that McKenna's going to, you know, have a chance to play with. You know, Emily touched on it. Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, Nyes, Easton Cowan, all pretty talented players that he has a great chance to have success with. So I would welcome the Kane addition, but you also have to find a fit for him. Is he going to be a top 6 guy, a bottom 6 guy? But that's something they can figure out at a later date.
And Nick Robertson, as we learned, already on the move from Toronto. So the Leafs have already been busy here. We'll see what else they've got in store as the day progresses.
All right, thank you, Laura. And let's take a look at some of the big money movers in the NHL. As you can see here, Anaheim has an NHL high $41 million to spend and 7 roster spots to fill. San Jose has $39 million to fill with 5 roster spots. Action and news continues to come in. Let's head over to the Breakers and Gord Miller.
All right, thank you, Brian. July 1st is also the date that teams could announce extension for players whose contracts are up at the end of next season. And Pierre LeBrun, we have one. And a player that was talked about as a potential trade target was Nico Hischier, but he's back in New Jersey.
Yeah, there are a bunch of teams hoping that Nico Hischier would have a change of heart and not sign an extension on this day, Montreal Canadiens being among them. But he's a loyal dude, and the Devils captain has agreed to a 5-year extension, which doesn't kick in for another year, at $11.7 million a year. And honestly, probably left some money on the table in this new salary cap landscape. I think that's a guy that could have got $14 million in a year, wants to stay in New Jersey and be part of things.
And the other thing we've seen in recent years is teams trading for a player's rights before July 1st and then being able to sign him. The Florida Panthers bringing back Radko Gudas.
Yeah, they got his rights on Monday for A.J. Greer. We saw Greer sign yesterday in Anaheim. And what's interesting about this contract is he goes 6 years for a 36-year-old defenseman going back to Florida. They did that to get his cap hit down to $1.5 million. The Panthers obviously navigating very close to that ceiling. They do it well. They found creative ways to do this in the past. We saw just last summer they signed Brad Marchand as well into his 40s. And so Gudas goes back, adds a little bit more bite to their blue line, and Panthers got it done just before the free agent bell opened.
We've been talking a lot about trades that have happened, and one guy whose name has been out there for about a month now, Dregs, is Darnell Nurse in Edmonton.
Yeah, and, you know, it's been a problem, obviously, for Stan Bowman and the Edmonton Oilers. They would have preferred, I'm sure Darnell Nurse would have preferred to have this deal done leading into the draft or through the draft weekend. But it's important to note that so far, Nurse and his camp have not been willing to expand his list. And his list is Philadelphia, it is the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it is the Boston Bruins. Well, a couple of those teams have already addressed some of their concerns or moves on the blue line. So Bowman really has been fighting a losing battle in an effort to try and move Darnell Nurse. And if you think of today and the opportunity of free agency, I mean, there are some good players available. But with Darnell Nurse carrying a cap hit of over $9.2 million, I think we have a higher level of appreciation why Bowman and the Edmonton Oilers were trying to push that money out, or at least make something work to generate a bit more cap space so they could be buyers.
Just like Hischier, a couple of other extensions that we expect will be announced today. Luostarinen in Florida, who has a year left, and Dan Vladar. We reported this a couple of days ago, but Dan Vladar, Flyers goalie, they'll announce his extension today as well.
before we go, you know, the biggest trade request that's out there is Dylan Larkin from Detroit. Steve Yzerman addressed it a couple of days ago, said, you know, this may happen quickly or may not. There's, you know, they're not feeling the heat to do it. What happens with Larkin? Because that's a center who's a big name.
It's quiet. Yeah, it's not there right now. That, as Bob McKenzie would say, that could change with one phone call. But as of right now, that is not close. And, you know, not only, I think, is Detroit looking at a player that they really value and that has a lot of value in the market, but his contract now has amazing value in this market, given where salaries are headed and where this contract has him locked in at. So,
but the market has to be bigger than 3 teams.
Exactly.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
All right, so the combination of Trade Center and Free Agent Frenzy continues, right?
Yes, it does. Thank you, guys. And when we come back, we will check in with our Western reporters in Calgary, in Edmonton, in Vancouver, and in Winnipeg. And we will get to the quiz where we will ask the question, which future duo has you most excited? This was a massively disappointing year in hockey for the not-so-great White North. Canada lost to the U.S. in the men's and women's Olympic finals, settled for bronze at the World Junior Championship, and lost to Norway. Yes, Norway, without Erling Haaland on that team at the World Championship to finish 4th. And as we know, no Canadian team won the Stanley Cup again. Since 1994, the Stanley Cup has been won by teams representing 13 states and the District of Columbia. Winning teams have spanned much of the U.S., from the East and Midwest to Florida and all the way west to California. No team has won in Calgary. right? The last Canadian team to win a Stanley Cup was an Eastern team in Montreal. Edmonton in 90, the Flames in 89. So they're trying to build towards that, get back into cup contention. What should Flames fans expect today?
Well, I think what we've seen from Craig Conroy and his group is work that's been ongoing through the course of the year, addressing who they're going to re-sign, who they're going to trade. They've done some really nice, tidy work in terms of acquiring first-round draft picks and then trying to understand how are they going to get this team into a really good position come the opening of the new building in 2027. Trying to get experience. They lost Jonathan Huberdeau last year to injury. They're hoping he can come back and give them 55, 60 points because literally that's what he is right now. But you start to look at where the Calgary Flames are. It's not about today. It's about how does today continue to build for tomorrow and for the season. And there's still work to be done and still decisions to be made. But I think Craig Conroy has shown he's not afraid of making those decisions. Some of those draft picks that he acquired, he moved them along to get Simon Nemec, a former second overall draft pick. So when you think about where the Calgary Flames are today, they've done some nice work and they're moving forward.
So that is the Flames all set. Can you do me a favor? Because you're a reporter right now. Can you send us out to Winnipeg and
I sure
trigger
can.
this whole thing?
Well, I mean, we got great Western reporters here. They all are here on our screen. We'll hear from them in a minute. But we're going to start in Winnipeg at the corner of Portage and Bain.
Thanks a lot, Craig. Well, you guys obviously know lots of speculation on whether or not Connor Hellebuyck will be a Winnipeg Jet to start the season. I know our insiders are all over that when it comes to trade talks, but even if he does start the season as a Jet, this organization still needs a backup goaltender. Eric Comrie is not signed at this point. Could that change? Maybe. But as it stands right now, one of the Moose goaltenders from last year, Dominic DiVincentis or Thomas Milic, would slide into that spot. Now, they're also looking for a second-line center, something they've been looking for quite some time. And if they're not able to attract that through free agency or a trade this summer, what I could see happening is the 8th overall pick in this year's draft, Swedish player Viggo Bjork, sliding into that position and making the roster. We did hear from management after the draft that they're going to give him that opportunity, so we'll see if that happens. And what I've learned about him as well is that he's been really trusted by his coaches to take on those important minutes, a great two-way player, so we'll have to see on that one. And as we know in Winnipeg, a topic of discussion always is the difficulty in attracting free agents. So we'll see if they're able to land anyone today to bolster that roster. Now for more on the Edmonton Oilers, let's send it even more west to Ryan Rishaug.
Yeah, Danielle, obviously this Darnell Nurse situation gumming up the works for the Oilers. That's a big number on the cap. They need to know if it's coming, if it's going, how much money do they have to retain? They clearly have needs. How much money do they have to try and address those needs? Much of that is hinging on this Darnell Nurse trade, and as Dregs alluded to a little bit earlier on, that trade list is still 3 teams, and unless it gets expanded, I think the idea of Darnell Nurse returning is something we're going to be hearing more and more about if there's a pathway to that being able to happen. Regardless of whether Nurse comes or goes, goaltending needs to be addressed. I think the Oilers are hoping Tristan Jarry will have a great summer, get himself healthy, come back and find a new level, but can they rely on that? Can they hang their goaltending hopes on that? I think they're going to hedge their bets. I definitely think the Oilers will look to bring in another goaltender, whether that's through free agency or trade. They need somebody to push Jarry if he's going to be the guy. So we'll keep an eye on Nurse. We'll keep an eye on net. Then there's other things around the periphery, like a 4th-line center, a top 6 forward, if they have any money to play with. Things definitely ambiguous here in Edmonton heading towards the deadline. Let's head to Vancouver and check in with Farhan Lalji on the Canucks.
Thanks, Reach. This is the latest opportunity for Vancouver's new leadership team of Ryan Johnson and the Sedin twins to put their fingerprints on this organization. And that process began at the draft, certainly, and certainly with the hiring of Manny Malhotra as head coach. But then earlier this week, they were able to make some changes with their forward group. They brought in Brendan Gallagher. They moved on from Nils Höglander. And Ryan Johnson has talked about the priorities during this free agency period and during this offseason, trying to get bigger, trying to get faster, and trying to add more character. And Gallagher certainly doesn't make them bigger or faster, but he does give them that character element. And when you look at the rest of this lineup, we're going to talk about the names up front and potentially what's going to happen with Jake DeBrusk. He's the most likely of Vancouver's forwards to potentially be traded. Elias Pettersson's name is always out there. That conversation has cooled a little bit of late. Certainly a more complicated deal than potentially moving on from DeBrusk. When you look at the goaltending situation, Johnson said that he's optimistic that Thatcher Demko will be healthy enough to go at training camp. And stability in net is a thing for this team. You got to go back to 2006, since before they acquired Roberto Luongo, where this team had challenges in goal. It wasn't great last year. Certainly Demko's injury situation has contributed to that. Right now they've got $13 million tied up in goal. And then look at the back end in terms of additions today. They might try to bring in some veteran players, some character guys on the back end to help insulate a young defense.
All right, this is where it starts to feel real that Duffy's not here, right? Like the quiz, this is where he really runs a tight ship.
This is where you can make a statement, too.
Let's
do it.
I agree with you. Okay, you guys ready to get to it here? Let's launch the quiz here. We are asking the question, which of these new NHL combos are you most excited to see just what unfolds next season? Matthews and McKenna in Toronto, Babcock and McDavid in Edmonton, the Tkachuk brothers in Florida, or Pittsburgh's Ruck twins, albeit they will be in Medicine Hat next season.
I'm going to go with McDavid and Babcock. You've got the best player on the planet, and you have got a coach that hasn't won a playoff series since 2013. And he's been mired in all these other issues in Columbus, and it didn't work in Toronto. And for some reason, the Edmonton Oilers felt that this was the best guy somehow to get him over the hump. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Well, it's Matthews and McKenna for me. You got the first overall draft pick. He's creative. He's got those Marner-like qualities to be able to distribute the puck. So I'm looking at a guy to be able to get the puck, transport it through the neutral zone, and get it to a guy like Austin Matthews, who has to drive play this year. I think that's got to be his swan song, to be able to drive play. So I want to see that combination. I know he's 18 years old, but really interested to see it.
Doesn't it have to be the Tkachuks? I mean, they're either going to score a bunch of goals. If nothing's going on, they're going to get in your face. They will be must-see TV no matter what. They're going to elicit an emotional reaction no matter who you're a fan of or not a fan of now. Watching those two guys run around every night in Florida together, feeding off each other, will be entertaining for sure, maybe effective and maybe Stanley Cup worthy perhaps, but either way, I'm going to watch.
I'll watch too, but I want to watch Matthews and McKenna. I still feel Matthews is the best goal scorer in the National Hockey League. The great goal scorer needs the top-notch playmaker, and the playmaker needs a top-notch goal scorer. In the absence of Mitch Marner, it really affected Austin Matthews. Trying to get him back on board there. McKenna's confident, and McKenna can be that playmaker, and you got to pay attention to Austin Matthews, which opens up some space for McKenna.
I love it. All right, I got to get this right because Duffy has jammed me up personally by passing this upside down. Craig, you're a reporter, an analyst. You're everything. You're getting it today. Craig Button. There you go.
Mr. Button.
That was seamless.
That was seamless. Thank you. That is the quiz.
I thought you might give it to yourself.
Agent Frenzy.
Free Agent Frenzy is presented by Harvey's. Summer just got hotter with Harvey's. Burgers, shakes, snacks, and more are all just $3. Harvey's, it's a beautiful thing.
They feel that it's going to be a pretty busy marketplace out there for them.
Sometimes that open money sitting in your cap, you've got to spend it.
I think teams are going to spend a little more than normally they would.
Everybody wants to do something to get better.
We sell it as a free agent frenzy, but this year it may live up to that billing for a number of different reasons.
We are minutes away from the floodgates officially opening in the NHL. Happy Canada Day, everyone. Free Agent Frenzy continues here on TSN. There's already been a lot of news in the NHL the last couple of weeks, the last couple of hours, the last couple of minutes, and the free agent board is going to start to dwindle down in just a matter of minutes. So to set the scene, as we are that close to free agency, let's head back to Laura and the guys to run down the list.
Frankie and Craig, obviously a day like this, the attention's really going to go to the top of our TSN UFA list, the top 50. So we're looking at the top 5, the top 10. No, we're going to spin things upside down here. We're going to look at the bottom 5 when it comes to our updated TSN UFA list. And coming in at number 50, I guess we can put a big X across that now because it was Radko Gudas, but now Radko Gudas just announcing a 6-year, $1.5 million deal with the Florida Panthers, who obviously just got his rights from the Anaheim Ducks. What do you think about that? What do you think about that term? That's a lot of years.
Okay, so we have to put this into context because the AFP analytic on Radko Gudas' contract was going to be 1 year, just over $2 million. He's going to get $9 million over the course of these 6 years. So you can run it any way you want, whether it was 3x3 or 2x2.5. But the fact of the matter remains with the Florida Panthers, Craig, you're either in or you're in the way, and Radko Gudas is back in.
Well, I look at the Florida Panthers right now, and I don't see they're the favorite for me for the Stanley Cup. Who's number 2? We can talk about it. You look at their forward group, you look at their defense group, you look at Markstrom addition. This is a team that can play it any way you want. They can play it skilled, they can play it hard, they can play it chippy. It's no fun to play against them. That's why I have them at the top as my favorite. We can discuss who's number 2. They're right there at number 1.
That's the thing. If you're part of the officiating crew for a Florida Panthers game, you better have those whistles handy. All right, looking at the top 5 once again as we inch closer and closer to the top of the clock. Hayes, it's almost go time.
It is almost go time. Like you said, we're a minute away. Radko Gudas, that is a long-term contract. That is a long-term contract,
don't you?
I do like it. He fits their DNA. You know, their D's shoot the puck, like when it goes up top, they're pounding it to net. He's got a heavy shot, and they like physical players, and he's definitely that. So he fits their DNA. I think it's a really good signing for them.
Do you agree with the other Craig saying that that's the team to beat now in the NHL?
How could you not? I mean, first of all, I was thinking that there's going to be some just brawls when Toronto goes down there now because Radko Gudas, but we all know that's probably not going to happen. But they have to be the team to beat. You just look at the way they play. It's going to be uncomfortable playing the Florida Panthers, whether it be a regular season game, and try beating that team the way they're physical in the playoffs and the way they operate. Yeah. Beating that team 4 times is going to be a challenge. And I know, Johnny, you like skill, puck possession, but there is a way to beat them, but it's going to be awfully difficult.
They're old. We'll see if they can stay healthy.
Yes, that is the question. All right, it is officially free agency in the NHL. Let's head to the Breakers and Gord Miller. Gord?
All right, Brian. So we talked about the fact that unrestricted free agents can sign now, and teams can also re-sign their own players whose contracts are up in 1 year. And the Montreal Canadiens have done that with Ivan Demidov, who won the Calder Trophy last year in the non-Matthew Schaefer division. Schaefer got every first-place vote. Demidov finished second, had a tremendous year. In any other year, he's probably the Rookie of the Year. And he's locked up by Montreal long term, Pierre.
Yeah, $9.15 million is the AAV on this extension that kicks in another year. The signing bonus money in total on this deal, I'm just reading it right now, is front-loaded. $57.6 million in signing bonus money for Ivan Demidov. Base salary of just $1 million a year in the first.
So how many years is the deal?
4 years. It's an 8-year deal. Sorry, thanks for bringing the lead, Pierre. Yeah, $57.6 million in signing bonus money, but by keeping the AAV at $9.15 million, considering where salaries are exploding in the new salary cap stratosphere here, I think the Canadiens again have scored a bit of a win here in terms of their young core stars being part of this cap culture that they've created here in Montreal. When you think of what Slafkovsky's at and Suzuki and Caulfield, even Late Hudson already looks like a bargain at his salary. So yeah, it's a lot of money for Ivan Demidov after 1 year in the NHL, but I think it's a contract that's going to age well.
Remember, too, this was the end of the 8-year window. This is the last opportunity here to get that kind of security. And when you have a player that young, I think it's smart for the Canadians to use it.
Dregs, we've been talking about players potentially being traded, and one of the names that's out there is Morgan Rielly.
Yeah, I mean, he's eager for a change of scenery, a new address. But, you know, as we've reported on over the last several days, like so many of these defenseman players, you know, he has trade protection, and his agent, J.P. Barry, originally submitted a 4-team Western-based list, and I believe that one of those teams in the West is a team that is trying to get the deal done, and that's the San Jose Sharks. Now, Mike Grier and John Czech have to consider what the framework looks like, and I think that there's been ample consideration and discussion on that. Does Toronto need to get a defenseman back? Well, maybe not if they land Zach Werenski. So there's a lot of balls in air from a Leafs blue line perspective, and, you know, of course, of note is the fact they already made the deal with Tampa Bay and put Darren Radish back there. But I do think that San Jose is another team that we're going to have to keep an eye on over the course of this day, because I think they're going to add a forward in Mason Marchment as well, which is one of those middle-of-the-road forwards that a lot of teams were interested in.
All right, so we've talked about potential trades and guys signing whose contracts are up next year, but this is July 1st. Players are now unrestricted free agents, and they're starting to sign.
Yeah, the fire hose is about to be turned on high here, I would suggest. And first signing that I can share with you is that Trevor Van Riemsdyk, the veteran defenseman, spent the last 6 years in Washington, will be signing with the Pittsburgh Penguins as free agency opens. But as I had mentioned, Gord, I think that you're going to see a whole bunch of this stuff get taken care of business the next hour.
So, Brian, you mentioned it. The salary cap is now over $100 million per team. I asked an NHL general manager yesterday how long he thought this extra cap space would last. He thought a couple of days.
Yeah. Sounds like it might be a couple of hours, the way things are already going. Thank you, guys. That is some tidy work, though, for the Montreal Canadiens.
Oh, yeah.
So Ivan Demidov, who is a young stud, he joins the list of Hudson, who's locked up, Caulfield's locked up, Slafkovsky's locked up, Suzuki's locked up, the young core, and none of them make more than $10 million.
Well, yeah, and you look at that and what Demidov's been able to do in his short career with the Montreal Canadiens. You know, his vision, he can create on a power play. I still think they need to align with him with someone on that second line, whether it's a 2C. I got my eyes on someone like Marchenko, but no question about it. Demidov is the future. This is a fast team, a quick team, a rush team, and he's right in line with that. But I really do love his IQ and his ability really to distribute the puck.
Crazy to think that in this new world that, Johnny, we were just having the discussion that he could have got more.
Way more.
Yeah.
So having this guy at $9 million, and he's been in the league for a year and a half.
Yeah. Well, Hudson could have got more.
I was just thinking about him. Like, in this world, if Lane Hudson just could have waited a couple of years, what kind of number would be attached to him, known as one of the best defensemen in the NHL? It would have been scary. But Demidov, he's an unbelievable talent. He can move the puck. He kind of runs the power play on that left half wall. The one thing that he's got to do, like their younger guys, is he's got to figure out a way to perform in the playoffs where it counts the most.
Greg, you coached against him.
Yeah, he's an elite player, and he's only going to get better. I think it's a great deal for Montreal. And it's nice to see a player of his caliber and understanding where he could be and what he could get paid, take a deal like that. He likes Montreal, he likes the core, and their core's all locked up, like you said, all $10 million and under, which is huge. I think they're really going in the right direction. They've made huge strides over the last couple of years, and I only see them getting better.
Yeah,
They've
they had a great
established
season.
A culture there where guys take a bit less. If I was his agent, who am I to scoff at $73 million? But I would have to say, listen, you sign 5 years, take 45, take 42, whatever it is, and you'll be making 14 in 5 years from now, and you can make $40 more million. But I think they've got a good thing going there.
Only you would think like that.
The numbers.
Well, I mean, it's obviously a great player. We know that. But I'm just, you're trying to maximize how much you can get out of your career. And Montreal, though, you look across the board. You mentioned those guys signed a few years ago: Slafkovsky, Caulfield, Suzuki. Even Dobson came in sort of in market value, but Hudson way up. Like they are so well positioned. But he did what he did this year without a centerman.
Here, we want to bring Craig and Frankie in here because they've covered this team all year in Montreal. And boys, do you look at the front office with this deal? Do you look at the player with this deal? Where does your head go first?
It goes both places, and I think that Mike Johnson just nailed it. He talked about the culture that they've established in Montreal. Players want to be there. We can talk about could they get more money? Yeah, they could get more money, no question about it. But when it's all said and done, Montreal's established a place that said we want to be here, and we want to be here long term, and that's what you got to do. What do we want? Craig Berube, Mike Johnson, everybody knows, we all know here, you want competitive players that want to win. So you want to be in an environment where you give the players a chance to win. Now we get mad at the players when they're in a non-competitive environment. They want to leave. Make the environment competitive and give them a chance for success.
One of the biggest challenges for all these teams now with the modern player in today's NHL is getting them all to trust the head coach and the general manager and say, listen, this is our vision, this is our belief, and we think we have the pieces that can do it, but we need everyone to buy into this cap culture, how we conduct ourselves. And the Montreal Canadiens, with all these like really skilled, talented players who, to Mike's point, could take a 5-year deal and cash in a little more down the road, they're saying, I trust you. And it's not one or two guys saying, I trust you. It's like all of them saying that. That is so incredibly rare to see around the league, and it's a big reason why they're building what they're building, pushing towards a Stanley Cup. They still have a few more pieces to put in place, but that's a big piece of business getting that done.
And you can pay all these players lots of money, and they go, we don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, well, especially with the narratives going around the league right now.
Well, it's Canada Day. It's good to see guys committing to Canada. Canadian market saying, I don't care about the pressure, I don't care about the weather, I don't care about the taxes, I care about winning in a market that's passionate about what we do. And they got that going right now in Montreal. Montreal is as well positioned as any team in the entire NHL for the next 5 years to be a consistent Stanley Cup contender.
4 years ago, if you go back on Twitter and you look at the roster, you know, every team puts out the roster that's playing that night, and you look at 4 years ago and you see some of those names there, you couldn't believe that that's where it was, and this is where it is now with the amount of skill and the notoriety for all these players. That's a 4-year cycle. They established so much in 4 years. Now, they have a lot of work to do to get to where they want to go as far as winning a Stanley Cup, but, man, 4 years and they built this. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and they have all their picks. They've got prospects, and they got two goalies, too, right, that they could trust, Dobish and Fowler moving forward.
And I think for them as well, you know, just getting that playoff success yet again. Right? So it started out early last year. Now all of a sudden they go further, and they were able to play and see where they need to get to that next level as well. So I think collectively with the passion and the fan base, you said it, the goaltending, you know, yeah, they need to shore up the sort of their defensive structure to some degree, but they've got all these assets, as you'd mentioned, to be able to not necessarily slow play it because they want to make the right moves, but they've been pretty logical in terms of waiting with the Dobson being acquisition a year ago to be able to make differences and have an impact in their roster.
Other fan bases are going to look at the Montreal Canadiens and all the elements that those two fine gentlemen just described over there, and whether it's Winnipeg or Ottawa or Columbus, they're going to say, why isn't our organization like this, where guys want to stay and guys want to buy. So it's not going to be the team specifically, but fan bases are going to say, if it's working like that in Montreal, why can't it work for our fan bases?
I played in Montreal because on some level Montreal's like no other fan base place in the league, like as far as what it's like to play there. And you know, maybe modern players don't care so much, but sort of the history when that place is good, it's really, really good.
Well, you can start when you skate out on the ice for warm-up. Everybody said it's the best atmosphere in the NHL. Why isn't that a starting point? That's pretty exciting to do every single night when you're at home, to play in the best atmosphere in the league.
Well, you mentioned maybe what some of the other teams and fan base could be thinking right now. I have to believe Ranger fans are wondering, why is Jeff Gorton not still running our operation? Like, how did they allow him to leave New York? Because, you know, Frankie referenced the timeline on how quickly they've turned things around. It is not a coincidence that he got there first and established exactly what they've done.
And that's a great way to get him on overdrive in the future.
He is a friend of the show.
He is a friend
of the show. We will make sure that happens in the future. But also a little bit ruthless, right, Craig? Like Brendan Gallagher, longest standing player. And they said it's not going to work anymore.
You know, as a general manager, coach, whatever, there's always tough decisions you have to make, and you got to do them for what's best for the team. And that's what they did. Montreal's a very good team. They're on the rise. If they can land a number 2 centerman or something like that, or just add a little depth down the middle of the ice, they're going to be a dangerous team. And you alluded, performing in the playoffs, it's only their second year in the playoffs. This takes time for players to understand how hard it is in the playoffs and things you have to do to be successful, and they'll figure it out.
There's a lot of value against Carolina. Even though it didn't go their way, they still made it there. 2 Game 7s on the road.
And Carolina really steamrolled just about everybody. Nobody was scoring against them. So to say, well, why didn't you score? You know, it may be a little bit more understandable. But that is a great business for Montreal. And good on Demidov. You know, you see security's happy. Good on him. But that's to have that, all these players, and it's so like whoever comes up next. How is anyone now going to say, I want the full frame?
It's been established.
You can't. No one can do it. If Hudson didn't do it, and Demidov didn't do it, and Caulfield didn't do it, No one's got to get to do it. No one's going to
be a part of that team. They won't play there. They'll find someone else. And it's just it's telling so much about where they're at right now that everyone there is willing to say, we're going to do this. And you brought up the Carolina Hurricanes, right? They have a brand. They have an identity. Well, now we know what Montreal's brand of hockey is. And Craig, you talked about them having to win in the playoffs. They can't deviate too far from that brand and that identity right now. Like, this is what their team is. They have to establish that, and they have to stick with it, and there's going to be some choppy waters along the way. But if in year 4 of this thing they decide we're not going to be this team anymore, then they're in big trouble. They have to keep going down this road.
Well, and patience, right? Like, Rod Brindamore's in his 8th year coaching this team. There's been some disappointment there, losing in the conference final, and you believe in what you're doing. You try to make sure you strengthen in this area, add a little piece that area. To your point, Craig, everybody wants the ideal player, but sometimes the ideal player isn't available. So how do you fill that in to strengthen your team even just a little bit?
Well, I like the point that you made, Craig, just about, it does take time, but it's the experience against playing against the Stanley Cup champions and the Carolina Hurricanes. Can you imagine being defenseman and having that kind of pressure on you, the relentless pressure, and feeling it and saying, this is what it's going to be like to be able to, if we're going to surpass it, if we're going to get there, we have to find ways to beat it. So I really like that they've had the experience. I mean, sure, they'd want to beat them, but at the end of the day, that mix has that now experience of going up against the very best and the relentless pressure. So I think that bodes well for the future as well.
Quick signing update here. Eric Howla is on his way to L.A. 2 years at $3.6 million.
That's so Scott Laughton replacement.
Yeah. Probably is.
They were
exactly
in Howla last year, and he was hurt, and they couldn't get a deal done. So still can skate, still can play.
Yeah, he's good. He's good defensive centerman. Yeah, draws, penalty kill. He can check. Go up against. Top lines on the other team and do the job. So he's a versatile guy.
Yeah, LA's an interesting team to see.
Centers are going to be, there's such a premium. There's no, Frankie just talked about, there's no centerman available. So Hall, Laughton, these guys are going to get calls right away.
Well, it's interesting, again, talking about this Demidov signing. He signed an extension in Montreal, and the Habs are patiently moving upward, yet they established themselves this year. And we keep talking about this Atlantic division and the arms race. Florida's going to get back into it. Buffalo joined the party. The Leafs are trying to be active. Obviously, other teams, Ottawa is trying to stay active. There's a lot going on already in the league, and there's certainly more to come. Let's throw it to Gino in the goalie panel. Gino?
All right, Hazy, number 1 on our pending UFA list is Sergei Bobrovsky. So, what about Bob? Are you pro Bob or no Bob? Let's bring in Weeksy. Weeksy, your take first. The Toronto Maple Leafs look to be closing in on a deal with Sergei Bobrovsky at this point. It could happen. It could still fall apart. We don't know. But at this point, it looks like the Leafs are making an aggressive ploy to get him. Are you pro or no, Bob?
Didn't you guys have a hydration break already, Gino? Because you sound a little dehydrated with that question. Of course, they should be all in on getting Sergei Bobrovsky in my hometown. You haven't won the Stanley Cup since 1967. Okay, so the guy that's won 2 consecutive cups and been to 3 straight cups prior to this season, future Hall of Famer, is he older in his career? Sure, but he's going to go down as one of the top goalies to ever play. And the professionalism, the stability, the consistency at the position, you don't have to overplay him as Stolarz is healthy. So I love this signing if they're able to get it done. I think he'd make perfect sense for Toronto.
I agree. I mean, I don't think there's a downside here. Yes, you're going to look at the birth certificate. 38 years old.
I'm going to look at his save percentage, which last year was the worst save percentage of his NHL career.
And there was 12 regulars missing out. I think you were playing D some nights in Florida and other people in this TSN panel here. Because that was a throwaway. You knew the Florida Panthers season was washed 12 minutes into their first practice when Barkov got hurt.
Yep.
So for me, I'm looking at it. It was a wash. I think that's an outlier for Bobrovsky. Regardless of what they sign him for, whether it's term or money or both, keep in mind, he's over 35, so they can be creative.
Over 35? He's almost 40. He's going to turn 38 before the season
contractual standpoint.
Yep. Okay.
You can have a bonus-laden contract.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be $12 million. You can do 5, 6, 7, and then have a bunch of bonuses that are achievable. I think what you do is you shore up the defensive core, which is a lot of work to be done here still. But the bottom line is, I think there's something that can be done, and Bobrovsky has an opportunity to be a top-tier defenseman, top-tier goaltender in this league still at 38 years old.
So I'm going to say pro Bob with a cautious here, because 3 years ago, Bob was 6th in the league in goal save above expectation. 2 years ago, it dropped to 27th. Last year, it dropped to 90th. So there's a trend going the wrong way. And look, he won the Cup, for 2 straight years, but his play was slipping a little bit. And the other side that I'm pro Bob, because I think it helps the Leafs right now. Yeah. But overall for the Leafs, I'm saying this is being very cautious, because 6 years ago it was Jack Campbell and Freddie Anderson. Then it was Campbell Mrazek. Then it was Samsonov Murray, Samsonov Wolf Stolarz. You've never shown consistency in that position. And now if you go Bobrovsky, you're not building what's coming through. You're not Akhtiamov, Hildeby, whatnot. You're starting to build it. But are you going to block that if you sign him to a long-term deal? That's my cautious approach here when it comes to Bobrovsky.
If you give him 3 years, let's say, Akhtiamov doesn't need waivers this year. He can be up and down. Right. Keep in mind, 84
You'd have
games.
to probably send, Hildeby's got to go, though, right?
I would think Hildeby would be the guy on the way out. Absolutely. And I think Weeksy would agree with that. But it's more about giving Artie, I call him Artie because Akhtiamov is a mouthful, but Akhtiamov, giving him an opportunity. He was brilliant in the playoffs for the Marlies. You give him a pathway to the NHL, and you have Stolarz, who's never played more than 34 games in an NHL season.
All right, so you mentioned the 3 goalies. Weeksy, let me come to you. Next year, we go to an 84-game schedule. Sergei Bobrovsky is going to turn 38 just before the start of the regular season. How many games do you give Bob next year that you say, okay, if we can give this many games, at least we'll get the best out of him?
Is Stolarz healthy? If not, I go to Akhtiamov, but I would say in and around the 50-game mark for Sergei Bobrovsky on an 84-game schedule. Guys, I'm telling you, this guy's in unbelievable shape. He's in impeccable shape. He is a monk. He's a goalie monk. All he does is train, recover, train, practice, recover. No alcohol, no anything. Doesn't indulge in anything. He's in peak shape, which belies his birth certificate.
You sure he's a goalie then? Or you're just laying out all that stuff out?
He's not either one of these goalies.
Couches, that's for sure.
Holy smokes. He's a new generation goalie.
It's a different flavor.
But I will say, I agree. I think something with a 4 in it, or maybe to 50 games. Keep in mind, I think it's a 3-goaltender system in the NHL this year, and it should be because of the amount of games.
So you want to bring Akhtiamov
if you can get him 10 to 15 games, 10 to 15 games and have him up and down. The thought process to continue to develop him is let's get him 50 games pro. Maybe that's 35 in the AHL and 15 at the National Hockey League level, and then you've got goaltender Bob and Stolarz up at the NHL level.
Around the NHL this year, we're going to see being used a lot of 3 goalies, 84 games in the year. I think it's like for the Leafs, it would be 45 Bob, 30 Stolarz, and then a 7 to 10 Akhtiamov, and then you'd kind of deal with the injuries as they come. But the point of bringing in Bobrovsky is not the regular season. It would be make the playoffs, get in the playoffs, win the division, represent the team in the Eastern Conference. That's what you're trying to do. So you don't want to overload them to get there, and you don't want to overload Stolarz either. Because who knows, maybe Bob gets something late in the season, Stolarz has to play. You don't want him to be running on fumes either. So I think that's why you do maybe 45, 30, and roughly 10 for a third goal.
Either way, signing Bobrovsky, if the Toronto Maple Leafs do it, they're better today than they were yesterday.
All right, the poll results are in, Hazy. 3 pro Bob, and not a single guy on the side of no Bob. And confessions that these guys clearly did not handle their NHL careers away from the ice the way Bob does.
All right, boys, I'll see if I can find someone here on this panel to possibly vote against the idea of Bob coming to Toronto. I mean, he's the #1 guy on our list. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's won Cups. He's won Vezinas. Johnny, where do you stand on that? The Leafs and Sergei Bobrovsky.
Part of me wants to defer to the coach who coached them. Like, would that be a good addition, given what else they need and what they have?
Absolutely. I would definitely.
Well, and you coached him back in the day.
And I coached him back in the day in Philly as a youngster, and he's an unreal worker, highly competitive, very dialed in. And I know he's older, but he works, and he does the things that he has to do daily to make sure he's ready to play. So I would love it. I think it would be a great signing for Toronto.
When you think about all those things, though, that Craig just talked about, like an example, you got some younger players. That's why I love Brendan Gallagher going over to the Vancouver Canucks. We know what Brendan is today and what he isn't anymore. But that ability to come in and be a competitor, a worker. Patrick Hornquist went to the Florida Panthers. Bill Zito said, I need to have our team understand what work and competitiveness is. And a guy like Bobrovsky, he comes in every day ready to work.
But goalies are a bit different.
No, but he works, Mike.
I understand. I get that. Even if he's working hard, I'm like, but he's a goalie. He's doing his own thing. Even if he's working harder than me, it's not quite the same as the guy who plays the same position or a skating position out there. I'll only say this: depending what else Toronto wants to do, because they're not operating in a vacuum. They have $25 million of space. They, to me, have needs that are greater than a goaltender. And I understand the concerns about Stolarz and his health. I think it's well documented. Can he stay healthy? Hildeby looked good in spurts. Aksiomov has looked good in the minors, but minors are not the NHL. I'm just saying we'll have to wait to see the whole picture. Because if you're left with money left over, then sure. Take them. But if this $6 million or $7 million precludes you from going to get the forward you need or a defenseman you need, I think on order of priority, we've talked about this before, Hayes, goaltending for Toronto might be third because they have needs elsewhere. That would be my hesitation.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with you, but the needs that you're talking about, center ice position, a winger, they're not available.
Right.
Are they available?
Doesn't seem like it right now.
We'll find out.
So what's available is a top-notch goalie. And, I don't see how you could pass on that.
And seizing that opportunity right now, not strong defensively last year. We're defending the rush, giving up a lot of shot volume. You look at that, you think of also the familiarity with Stolarz, right? So there's been that tandem before. So now all of a sudden there is that familiarity within your own system. Lorenz has been your shooter. So there's that, but then there's also this pedigree to be able to make those big saves at the right time and those timely saves. Not last year, but
let's be honest. He's 38. He had a really bad year last year.
It wasn't great.
It wasn't
the whole
a great
team was horrible last year.
Right?
Any other player that comes in off a down year, I know he's got the pedigree, but it's not a guarantee. Goalies are tricky.
So why do you think Florida decided not to make this happen?
They couldn't make the money work.
Yeah.
But Markstrom's not playing for free.
Yeah, but he's got 2 years at whatever. But they move some players up.
Because they weren't willing to do what Toronto's about to do.
But I guess that's
the point you're making.
Yes.
Because they went from a position of, well, we feel we're good enough that we can pivot and don't have to go with Bob, or maybe we have money that's tighter that we can't afford to go to Bob. Toronto in the weirdest position where they have money for the first time.
Well, you can make a case. Every signing has a business case for and a business case against. And they can be different. They can be against in one place and for in another, like it is here in Toronto.
Toronto's made the decision. It's not a rebuild.
Right.
It's a retool. So this is how we're going to retool it and get competitive again, hopefully get in the playoffs. And bringing in Bobrovsky gives you a very good chance.
Very rarely on this day are perfect decisions made.
Right.
Well,
that's the nature of the day.
It's asking a lot. He's 38. We all know the details. It is the one position, Cheryl, where if you get red-hot goaltending, it's the easiest way back into the playoffs.
Absolutely. It starts on the back side of it, right? So it starts on the back end. You get that timely save. Now all of a sudden,
you're moving. Even 2 years ago, though, Cheryl, like they leave. You would know, like 2 years ago, you guys won the division. The goaltending was spectacular.
Well,
Third best save percentage. It wasn't just shot suppression. It wasn't just chances. It
wasn't shot suppression, but it was shots from
quality chances.
Yeah, we didn't give up that quality chances. We took care of the middle of the ice, gave our goalies an opportunity to make the easy save. That's what it boils down to.
Free agency now, about 25 minutes into go time. Let's head back over to the Breakers and Gord Miller.
If you look around the National Hockey League and talk about veteran players, you won't find one better liked than Matt Zuccarello by teammates. He is. Henrik Lundqvist loved him in New York. They love him in Minnesota. And now Pierre LeBrun is on the move.
I'll tell you who loved him in Minnesota is Kirill Kaprizov.
Right.
I mean, they had great chemistry and tough loss for the Wild. They got so many cap issues. They just couldn't keep him. And LA Kings signed him for $1 million plus bonuses. He'll go play with Artemi Panarin and try and find chemistry there on that team that needed offense. 1-year deal, pretty good bargain here for the LA Kings trying to upgrade their offense.
So we talk about, Minnesota loses Zuccarello. They got Quinn Hughes coming up in a year, right? They made the big deal for him. Where do things stand with the Hughes camp?
As of Monday, I will tell you that talks on an extension for Quinn Hughes were actually not that far advanced. It's not a concern. Craig Leopold, the owner, is on record last week saying they are getting him signed. It should be a 3-year extension when they get through the process with Quinn Hughes. I just don't think we're going to hear news on that today. But no one involved in that process is concerned that it won't get done.
All right, so there's some signings dribbling in, right?
All right, thank you, Gord. And again, signings are coming in, but as we've been talking about here, Sergei Bobrovsky, #1 on our list. He is still a free man. Where will he play next? Could it be Toronto? We may find out soon.
Connor to the backhand, what a save by the glove of Bobrovsky. Tremendous stop.
Bobrovsky's left pad gets back and takes one away from Nice.
Great save by Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky would not be fooled. Bobrovsky got a piece of that. What a stop by Bobrovsky.
Free Agent Frenzy is presented by Harvey's. Summer just got hotter with Harvey's. Burgers, shakes, snacks, and more are all just $3. Harvey's, it's a beautiful thing.
Carlson cuts out high. Through the back door, trying to cut it for the backhand, and he scores! He scores! Jacob Trouba with a bomb from the right point. Trouba blast, score! Jacob Trouba drops the hammer.
All right, Free Agent Frenzy continues. John Carlson's still out there. He's available. Jacob Trouba, as we just saw, he is available. Zach Werenski, not a free agent, but he has basically taken the league by storm the last 24 hours with the reported trade agreed to between Columbus and Dallas. Zach Werenski has a full no movement clause. He said no dice, not happening.
Crazy world when you say, get me out of here, and then it's like, no, not there.
Not there.
Exactly. And Dallas is a really good team, too.
And the fact that they'd go that far down the road, have a trade agreed to, sort of Thomas Harley hearing that his name might be in there, and all of a sudden you're going to pull back. And how's Thomas Harley feeling right now in Dallas?
Absolutely.
Not great.
Yeah, I would think that they have to probably get to him pretty quickly and figure out how they're going to soften that. Or maybe you're too far down that road and you got to find a way to flip him.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing when it comes out, right, in the dressing room and what it does to the player. Hey, Craig, I mean, that's something that it's so difficult in today's day and age, right? So now all of a sudden it's out there, so Harley doesn't feel well about himself, and everyone's got it. Anyone would want to be in on Werenski. I mean, he's a franchise, he's a franchise defenseman. I mean, when was the last time Toronto had a franchise defenseman? Boris Salming?
Yeah, probably Salming.
Probably Salming,
Probably
if you go
Salming.
back.
Yeah.
So,
Thomas Caberlet is having taken credit.
He didn't win a Norris. Didn't win a Norris.
I mean, you're not going to find a guy like that. You want, you're talking about a guy who can transport the puck. He's the connection to your offense. He can move a puck. He can jump into the offense. He had 81 points this season. So all three zones, he's going to benefit you. So I think any team would really want to be all in on this guy.
Well, just the way he basically controls the game. He's out there for 30 minutes, Chief, and he has the puck. He makes decisions with the puck. It's like back when Nick Lidstrom used to play. He was out there so much, and he was so gifted with the puck, offensively, defensively smart, ran the power play. It's almost like when you get a guy like that, they're controlling a lot of the game when they're out there because they're out there so much and they're so good.
They control 25 minutes or more of the game. I coached Chris Pronger back in the day, and, he just controlled the whole game out there when we had him. It was totally different when he was on the ice, played 25 minutes plus, and, passed the puck. He was methodical, mean, but he controlled the whole game. Werenski controls the game. Great passer, kind of plays in a little bit of a rocking chair. He's methodical, but he's smooth, makes the right decisions, very intelligent, run a power play. Anybody who can grab him is a huge upgrade.
Overtime, 3-on-3, all of it.
Exactly.
Skater,
he had himself a
edgework.
pretty magical season. When you take a look at just simply the resume, Zach Werenski had a season to remember, co-leading Team USA in plus-minus, setting up Jack Hughes for the Olympic gold medal-winning goal against Canada and winning the Norris Trophy after finishing as a runner-up in 2025. So a few guys that know a thing or two about playing defense in the NHL, maybe not to the same caliber as Zach Werenski, but close.
But I disagree.
Close.
Close.
None of that.
Just saying.
They don't know who I am. So they know I'm not.
We
Zach
love you
Werenski.
and we know you. Cameron Gons, Carlo Koliakovo, Frankie Corrado. Go ahead, boys.
Thank you for initiating the D2D pass from one defenseman to three more. Carlo, Cameron, Frankie here, and we're going to talk a little bit about Zach Werenski. Cameron, you have a really unique perspective watching Zach Werenski. Your brother Brendan plays for the Columbus Blue Jackets. You've watched him a lot, and everyone outlined there what makes Zach Werenski such a special player. But maybe you can give us a little bit of context about, we all played in the league. Just how difficult is it to be that kind of defenseman in the NHL?
It's almost impossible, and that's why every team should try to get him. The way he controls the game is unlike any other. Talk about having a good offense. The best way to have a good offense is good defense. Well, the best way to have a good defense, have the puck the whole game. And that's what Zach Werenski is able to do. The way he breaks the puck out, the way he skates the puck through the neutral zone with such ease, it just gives that much more time for their teammates to play on the offensive side of the puck. It gives the Columbus Blue Jackets, right now, the opportunity to do so much more. And he elevates everyone around him. When he's on the ice, it makes everyone else better. And if you can get him, everyone else in your team improves by that much.
You talk about elevating. Think about Zach Werenski's career. He spent his whole career in Columbus. Now he finally is at a stage right now where, in hockey recent memory, he assisted on the biggest goal that we've seen at the Olympics when Jack Hughes scored it. And he's coming off of winning the Norris Trophy, putting up 80-plus points doing so. So when he's tasted all that, you can understand why he wants more. And any team that has a chance to bring this guy in, we talk about for years, looking for these type of defensemen, it's almost impossible to find them in trades, right? You got to draft, you got to develop them. Now we've seen Quinn Hughes get traded. Zach Werenski's potentially going to get traded. I mean, this is an absolute no-brainer for anybody that should consider acquiring a guy like this, to go all in because he has that much impact in the game. You guys talked about the ice time, playing with the puck, but to me, it's the offensive production that he brings on that back end, especially you add him with top players. sky's the limit on what type of numbers he can produce.
And that's the thing that I think is so important to point out with this entire situation. There was a time where the Vancouver Canucks were a really good team and Quinn Hughes was there, while the Columbus Blue Jackets, they have been struggling to even try and make the playoffs. So what does Zach Werenski look like when he's on a team surrounded by a little more talent? You know, if you look at our 1 through 5 board, the reason why Zach Werenski, yeah, he's a great player, there's not a ton out there that really is going to make a huge difference for your team. One of the players that used to be a really big difference maker is John Carlson. For me, he still got a lot of game and was one of those guys at one point that felt like untouchable. What do you see in John Carlson's game that can help someone?
Well, I still see a guy, the most important thing for a defenseman is a guy who can skate. Right? He's still got wheels. He's still got a great mind for the game. He understands how to play it in a smart way, when to join the rush, when to make the right pass. And you look at the impact that he had leaving Washington, going to Anaheim last year, helping them get to the playoffs, win a round, upset the Edmonton Oilers. But you remember what everybody in Washington said when he left? Glue guy in the locker room, right? That's important. Those are important intangibles, too. I don't care about his age. I still think he can be very impactful. Can Carolina get it done, or does he find a more suitable place for him to be? And I would imagine there's a lot of suitors for him.
There has to be a ton, because what he showed last season on the ice, exceptional, as it's been for a long time, with the 60 points, can still run a power play, all that. But he went from a team in Washington for all those years that was at the top of the league. They were the veteran team. They were the group. He showed the ability to now integrate into a younger roster with the Anaheim Ducks, showing how he can play with other types of players and still excel. Help those players. We talked about Werenski. I'm not saying Carlson's the same thing, but everyone he plays with, he elevates their game. So why can't he do that with whatever team signs him?
Well, and so if you go back a few years ago, the Washington Capitals knew that John Carlson was just playing too much. They were playing him 25-plus minutes a night. They needed to find more help around him. So they brought in Matt Roy, a right-handed shot, and they insulated their blue line a little bit more. John Carlson is now at the age, at 36 years old, where if you can get him playing 19.5 minutes a night, play some power play time, and just be a guy who gets the puck into the hands of forwards, he is A, not going to hurt you, B, he is going to help your team in a big way on a reasonable term, on a 2-year term. That is very much within reason for John Carlson.
In the right situation, he's still very impactful.
Exactly.
We might have some news on that, actually.
Okay.
Perfect little segue with more on John Carlson. Now we're cooking here. Let's head over to the Breakers and Gord Miller.
All right, let's pick up that thread on John Carlson. Anaheim shelled out big for Jacob Trouba and for John Carlson, but now Carlson's hitting the market along with Trouba. What's the latest on Carlson?
Yeah, so listen, Carlson's camp led by agent Rick Curran, they've had 4 days of talks with the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, again, I think everyone's sensitive to the fact Carolina has been trying a lot of different things. They tried on Maverick Bourque, didn't get him. But at the end of the day, there was another offer made by Carolina, I'm told, at around 11:45 a.m. Eastern. It was turned down. It was below what the Carlson camp wanted. So for now, Carlson's camp now taking calls from other teams now that the market is open. Among those teams that I believe that have called in the last half hour, the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Philadelphia Flyers, among others. The door is not closed to Carolina. The Hurricanes can still come back because that's a place where John Carlson does want to play. But if I had to gauge this right now, I think Tampa is a very alluring prospect for John Carlson, replacing Darren Radish on that power play. We'll see where it ends up.
Dregs, Mason Marchment's a hot commodity today. His dad, Brian, was a very popular San Jose Shark who went on to work for them in their player development system before passing away. Is he headed there?
Yeah, an emotional connection, and that was our sense right out of the gate when we signed on earlier today that Mason Marchment would end up in San Jose. We believe it's a multi-year deal. I mean, this is a player that ticked a lot of boxes for a lot of teams around the National Hockey League. Speculation around the Maple Leafs, maybe the Montreal Canadiens, but he is going to San Jose. And one other player we should mention here, Gord, is Jaden Schwartz, right? Leaving Seattle to sign with the Colorado Avalanche. That really is the organization he wanted to go to, and that's a 3-year contract at $3.25 million.
Played his college hockey at Colorado College, so it makes a lot of sense. We talk about the Florida Panthers. You talk about their stars, obviously, their big names. The other thing the Panthers have is one of the best supporting casts in the NHL. And sometimes, you overlook guys like Gustav Forsling on the back end, Anton Lundell, and Etelus Renan.
Yeah, and how good was he when they won the Stanley Cup in 2025 playing alongside Brad Marchand? And the Panthers, another thing they do well, they keep their own talent. He gets an 8-year extension, Gord, with a $5 million AAV. And this is something we've seen Florida do consistently. Mentioned the Radko Gudas signing earlier today at 6 years. They stretch out the term in order to get those cap hits down and keep the band together.
But to point out, too, and I think people at home might say this right away, the tax advantage, right?
Yeah.
I mean, $5 million there is like...
And you're winning. I mean,
yeah.
I know that last year was a tough go there, but when you go to 3 Stanley Cups in 4 years, I think it's easier to keep players as well.
Right, Brad?
Thank you, Gord. So that's a big deal. Mason Marchment, right? He's a really good player. He's jumped around the league a little bit, and he's going to San Jose. And that's a team that you'd have to believe a lot of free agents have circled right now.
He was the guy I thought might get the highest total dollar value today after Rasmus Anderson, highest forward, and he's going to get 35, it looks like. It's a good number, good forward, he's physical, plays with edge, can play with other top players in San Jose. My only question is, I mean, it doesn't really matter at this point, but they just got a similar kind of player in Kiefer Sherwood. And I almost would like it more if they didn't already have Sherwood there to do some of what they're doing to him, but he was going to be popular, and San Jose makes a lot of sense because they need a player like him, Chief.
Yeah, for sure. They got a great young core. We all know that. Now they're surrounding it with some veteran players, some size, some grit to help them out and push them to a playoff position, in my opinion. So I think it was a great signing by them.
A little disappointing. I saw him on the driving range the other day. I told him to tell me first, and he didn't give me the scoop. But richly deserved. I think he's a quality guy. And I think with some consistency playing in San Jose and staying there, those young guys, they need some kind of meat around them, you know, some muscle, some veteran presence, and he can definitely do that. And he's a great guy to complement a guy like Celebrini and just kind of help them along the way.
Well, and he can create some room with that size and aggressive nature to get to the net, whether he doesn't have the puck or does, going through the middle of the ice. And so I like him in the tight spaces, right? So that's something, too, you know, tops of circles down below the goal line, to create some room for those younger guys as well.
Well, and San Jose is an interesting team because they need defense. We know that, right?
A lot of money.
They got a lot of money.
40 million plus to spend.
Exactly. But Celebrini's going to get paid.
Will Smith is
like
going to
we
get
know
10.
that Will Smith's going to get paid. It's going to be interesting. I get the sense. I don't know if they're there yet, San Jose, as a team that people like officially want to jump on with. But Celebrini's got a Sid McDavid vibe, doesn't he, Craig? Like 100%. In terms of his reputation around the league.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it really came out the Olympics. I mean, this guy was a star there in my opinion.
He's the best player.
Yeah, he was unreal. And so players going to want to go there and play with this guy and be around him because he's a leader already at a young age. Great player, we all know that. If they get some help on defense, they're going to be pretty dangerous.
Absolutely. Speaking of defense, it sounds like John Carlson, maybe Tampa Bay could be lurking.
Radish out.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
They need a shooter, a right shot. Guy can play off Kucherov on the
Good
power
for
play.
Carlson, man. As I mentioned off the top, Ryan, I thought that guy was going to kind of just fade away and kind of get some casual one-year deals, and you'd never see him again. But good on him. He's still a good player. He can move the puck. He can run a power play.
Hey, Brent Burns is still out there playing. Right? Yeah. Brent Burns is older than Carlson.
Well, Carlson's going to play a big role in Tampa.
That's right.
If he goes there, he's not going to be sort of like Brent Burnsy as a 4 or 5,
Well, and there's
6.
uncertainty with Hedman and what's going to happen with him in the future, too, right, Cheryl? I mean, that's a big
part
of it.
Does that take them out of the Werenski running?
That's a very good
question.
question.
Well, that's a big question because Werenski, you know, we've been all talking about it all day.
Because if it was not Dallas, and there's not Tampa,
who's left?
What other teams are left that we've heard of?
Toronto would be the third team that we continue to hear about.
Well,
maybe there's someone lurking.
I mean, the interesting part for me, and you were talking a little bit about it earlier, MJ, is with Werenski, whether or not, and then, because the Hedman stuff, and he's aging as well. What the package could look like, though, for Tampa going the other way. And so, you know, just Moser.
If it had to be, but yeah.
That is the name.
You're going to have to give up a lot. Tampa's going to have to give up probably too much to get Werenski.
And I don't know if they have it.
John Carlson would be a good fit, right? Free agent, pay him. Here's a guy who ran a power play forever and Wash, did a great job, and he can come in there and do the job.
Well, we see what ends up happening here with John Carlson, but we just mentioned a moment ago that Mason Marchment is heading to San Jose, and obviously that is a team and a market that he and his family very, very familiar with, and we bring him in now. Mason, congrats. How cool is this going to San Jose?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's full circle, and you know, me and my family couldn't be more excited.
So we were talking about, you know, how San Jose is set up for the future, and one player in particular in Macklin Celebrini and how he's kind of changed the whole reputation of that team. What do you know of Celebrini, and how much of an impact did that have on you signing there, the fact that he and other young players are really, moving and shaking in the right direction for San Jose.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just it. He comes in and he really took the league by storm, and just playing against him, watching clips of him, he's a one of a kind of player. So just to go join them and help build that, and something I've always kind of in the back of my head kind of wanted to do, and I think it's perfect timing. They're on the up, and they got so many young talented players, and Jersey's done a great job of bringing in some guys to help them, and hopefully I can be one of those guys. So.
Well, and you're walking into a division you're somewhat familiar with, right? With, Vegas there and Edmonton there. You're going to be taking on a few Western Canadian teams. And there was a lot of debate, a lot of rumors in terms of how many teams might be knocking on your door. I'm sure there were a lot. How deep into conversation with your family, with your agent did you get to maybe going elsewhere, or was it always going to be San Jose?
Yeah, there were definitely, a couple options, but, they were one team, that was right at the top of my list. Like I said, with all the young skill and stuff they have there. So, obviously, there's a lot of people I'm comfortable there, and, it's going to be fun. But, at the end of the day, I thought it was just the best place for me. And, I love the way the team's going. And, yeah, I think it was mostly San Jose the whole way.
I'm sitting beside the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, and he's a little bit disappointed with you. He said he saw you on the range, and you promised him you'd allow him to break the news. Can you confirm or deny that?
Well, he was trying to get some info out of me, and I kept strong, so.
Okay. You're not the only one. Everyone does that with him, so you don't have to concern yourself at all. We'll catch you up on the range.
I'll give him all the info he wants now.
Attaboy. He'll come reaching you. He'll come find you, absolutely. So enjoy the rest of your summer. Congrats, and good luck in San Jose. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
You got it. There's Mason Marchment, probably on his way to the golf course right now after signing a massive deal. And he's on his way to San Jose. He's off the board. Many, many more still to come. Free agent frenzy continues here on TSN.
Severson opens up and scores. Tipped in by Marchment. Welcome to the Blue Jacket. Marchment, and he scores!
A little backhand flip right through the slot, closing in, they score! Mason Marchment off the feed from
Canada faces Morocco in the FIFA World Cup 2026 round of 16 Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And you can catch all the action on TSN, CTV, and on Crave. I want to thank our friends at Harvey's, proud sponsors of Free Agent Frenzy. A little drop off, right? Catch up around the horn. We're still doing that bit, or is that bit dead?
Catch up on that will be coming up very soon.
Yeah,
I think we have to.
It has to. It's mandatory.
Once a year, forever.
Once a year. So thank you to Harvey's. We're going to get after this, and while we do that, we'll head over to Laura and her panel. Laura?
It's not fair. I'm hungry too. We've got Emily Kaplan back from ESPN, as well as Carlo Koliakovo. And Carlo and I, lucky enough to follow the Montreal Canadiens this past season here, the Habs on TSN, and they made a huge home run to kick off today with the re-signing of Ivan Demidov to that 8-year extension. So that's great. Checks another box, especially the terms when it comes to the deal, Carlo. But what's next for the Montreal Canadiens?
You know, Laura, I was very critical of the Montreal Canadiens at the trade deadline last year when they decided to stand pat. And it worked out for them. Right? They went all the way to the conference final. But I don't think they should take the same approach in this offseason and where they're at right now. You look at the players that they have on their roster. They got the top line, Suzuki, Caulfield, Slafkovsky. They tried to build the top 6 last year, even by splitting up that group. You had Oliver Kapanen that had a big year. Ivan Demidov, who they've just committed to. If I'm the Montreal Canadiens, I'm zeroing in on the Columbus Blue Jackets right now, because that's a team right now that has some big names out in the market. I know Werenski's a target for other teams, but I would zero in on Kirill Marchenko and see what the status is for him. 25 years old. This guy's a 30-goal scorer. You look at the trade that didn't happen at the deadline last year when there's speculation that they tried to acquire a Matthew Knies. And I know the need is center ice. They got Michael Hayes. They got Zurovsky coming, who's a highly talented prospect. If you can add a big top-line winger like Marchenko can bring, wow, what that could do for the depth of the Montreal Canadiens.
Absolutely, and I think that Carlo brings up a good point in that the Demidov contract is a really good piece of business, but he was on the team last year, and what we're seeing in the East right now is an arms race. The Tampa Bay Lightning, the team that took the Montreal Canadiens to 7 games, they could significantly upgrade their blue line with either John Carlson or Zach Werenski. The Florida Panthers made it very clear to all of us that their 1-year absence from the playoffs was going to be just that. They got even better, even meaner this offseason. And that's not to mention the teams that have probably been the most active. The Buffalo Sabres, they've got a lot of irons in the fire. And the defending Stanley Cup champion, Carolina Hurricanes, will come back probably stronger. I hear there's a lot of balls in the air for them. And as I was going through this playoff season, I was on the road talking to so many players and coaches, executives. I heard the echo of the same thing. The Western Conference was the better, more competitive playoffs. I don't expect that to be the case next year. The East is getting even stronger.
A little bit of an internal competition there. For the Montreal Canadiens, yeah, they got a taste of the playoffs last year. 2 years in a row now they've made the postseason. They want to show to everybody they're not going anywhere, and now it's all about finding those next steps to get them to become an annual contender.
Laura, they made a big splash last offseason. They went out and acquired Noah Dobson. I think the Montreal Canadiens should make a big splash this offseason.
Kent Hughes continues to be a ninja, right? How he's getting these deals done. Hayes, as one host to another, I know what it's like. Everyone is eating around you, and you're just sitting there getting back to work as the food gets cold, right?
That's right. We're professionals, though, Laura.
We are.
Like, we're actually professionals here. TSN Free Agent Frenzy continues. We'll touch on the Edmonton Oilers and their plans next.
Barbashev, Stone, Anderson shoots and scores. Did he rip that? Rasmus Anderson with his 12th. That's a new career high. Here's Anderson dancing through and he scores. What a move by Rasmus Anderson.
Rasmus Anderson, name it, is still out there, still a free agent, expected to get big money, likely lots of term. For another update, let's head to the Breakers and Gord Miller.
Yeah, and we're going to turn our attention to another defense we've been talking about, and really the key to the whole market is Zach Werenski, Pierre.
Yeah, and listen, we all know what happened, as CJ said at the start of the show. The deal with Dallas did not happen. And the sense I get right now is I don't expect the Zach Werenski trade today. Famous last words. But the sense I'm getting is Columbus regrouping here. Again, looking at the other teams involved, Tampa, Toronto, among others, but having a bit of a reset in this situation. Today's not a trade deadline. Right. Zach Werenski does not have to be dealt today, despite the fact that we're all here on set and hoping for that. So this could drag out a bit more.
But you also said earlier, it's not out of the question he goes back there?
It's not out of the question. I mean, I think the thing that I find difficult in terms of, you know, the horses leaving the barn is some of the emotion that's transpired here over the last 3-4 days. But that was the original offer from Judd Moldaver, the agent, to Don Waddell when all this started, this process, is that if you can't get the deal that you need this summer, Zach will come back and play, and then you can figure it out again over time. He's got 2 years left on his deal. So that's not out of the question either.
Dregs, has any player in the history of the NHL had a better arbitration case than Jason Robertson has in Dallas, coming off a 45-goal year? He's a restricted free agent, eligible for arbitration. What's his status?
Well, it's up in the air. There's no doubt about that. I think from the preference of the player and his family, he'd prefer to stay in Dallas, right? That's his home. Loves playing for the Dallas Stars. But from a Dallas standpoint, you look at it and you've got Mikko Rantanen at $12 million. And because of the numbers that you have just isolated there, Gord, Jason Robertson is probably worth more than that. Well, not probably. He's worth more than that. And we know he already pushed away from the Seattle trade that would have paid him north of $15 million on an 8-year contract extension. So there's all kinds of rumor and speculation out there. We know the Toronto Maple Leafs traded his brother Nick to the Pittsburgh Penguins. There was some social media mutterings about, ooh, I wonder if Jason is going to end up in Pittsburgh. But again, it goes back to the player wanting to stay in Dallas. Is that in the best interest of the Stars? They remain open for business and would like to move Jason Robertson. So maybe similar to Zach Werenski, everybody just needs a little bit of time and space to cool down.
CJ, if you talk to fans in Canadian markets about Ilya Mikheyev, he played in Toronto and Vancouver, they'd be, all right. In Chicago, though, he kind of refound his game. 20 goals 2 years ago, 18 last year, and now Tampa in the mix there.
Yeah, well, there were some fans in Edmonton I saw that were thirsting after Ilya Mikheyev in the lead up to this UFA period, but instead he goes to Florida. And as you mentioned, it's a healthy deal, a 4-year contract from the Tampa Bay Lightning at a $3.85 million AAV. So they've made a commitment here to bring him in. And, you know, look, the Blackhawks at one point in time did have interest in keeping him. Obviously, they weren't comfortable getting to that kind of number. But Mikheyev is back in the Atlantic Division and, finds a nice home there with the Lightning.
All right, Brian?
Thank you, Gord. And those are the insiders doing what they do best. But we have a new insider with the ultimate insight, the most personal insight you could possibly have. Let's head to our new insider, Cameron Gaunce.
Insider's a stretch, but this one I'll take. Boston Bruins and my brother, Brendan Gaunce, have agreed on a contract with Boston. With Boston, my brother goes to a team that needs some centerman depth. They need to win some faceoffs. Last year, he had 57% with Columbus, had a couple shorthanded goals for them. And what Boston gets is my mom's favorite son, along with a lot of other things that he brings to a table. I think Boston's lucky to have him. I know I'm lucky to have him as a brother, so I'm very happy for my brother.
I love seeing that. Love it. Now,
awesome. He doesn't talk to me about money. You kidding me? You see how I dress?
Yeah, we need term. We need term. We need money. We need a salary cap breakdown.
No, that's all you're getting. That's all you're getting.
I have any more relatives that play in the NHL? What else should we expect?
Got the team wrong.
Well, I was going to say, like, I have 2 sisters, but they would have fed me wrong information to make me look stupid on the show. 100%. So you're 100% confident Boston's the team. He wouldn't jam you.
No, I wouldn't, because my parents were involved, so they made sure that he was telling me the right information.
I love it. That's pretty pretty good.
stuff.
Can't beat that. I mean, the brothers, there's a lot of them in the
We
NHL
got
right now.
Radko daughter announcing his signings. We got brothers announcing signings. It's a family affair today.
Yeah, that's not bad. You got the Kachuk brothers down in Florida.
That's it.
Right? They're the ultimate brothers right now in the league, wouldn't you say?
Well,
or the Stahl brothers after
Stahl
Jordan
brothers.
just won the
We
cup?
got the Sedins running Vancouver.
That's right.
You know, they're all over the place.
Okay. Okay. Let's get into the Edmonton Oilers here and try to detail or look ahead to possibly what could be happening. Because as we know, if McDavid did not sign that contract extension last year, he would be coming up. He'd be coming up right now. Just a reminder, he would have been a free agent had he not signed that 2-year extension for an ultra club-friendly $12.5 million per season. Now that makes him the 6th highest paid player going into next season. Kirill Kaprizov at the top, Leon Draisaitl, Jack Eichel, Austin Matthews, Nathan McKinnon ahead of him. Like, does that make sense? That we're a year out. He did the deal. He signed the deal. He's committed to Edmonton at least for the next couple of years. But best player in the world, not even in the top 5 when it comes to being paid.
I don't think anybody should be anywhere close to that guy, but that's who knows what that.
But that's an aberration. That's nothing to do with the market.
I get it.
That's
in
his
2 years, who knows what's going to
Mm.
happen with that guy? The Edmonton Oilers, the team he is with, though, is going to be fascinating. They just hired Mike Babcock. They've got McDavid and Draisaitl. They've been to 2 Stanley Cup Finals, couldn't get it done, and it now seems like they're in desperation mode. How does it all fit? I mean, and the big thing with the Edmonton Oilers, you can talk about the coach, you can talk about the 2 best players, but can they defend, or do they have poor goaltending? What is it? How are they going to fix their issues?
And also the nurse situation, right? So what's going to happen there with that money as well? So you know, you're thinking about, okay, if we lose him, do we need to shore up someone on the back end? So you're going to have a hole there, but you also have this goaltending. So you get that money with McDavid, but you got to do something that's going to have an impact with that money. And I'm looking to the crease for sure.
Yeah. Well, they've already spent a lot of that money.
Well, the whole point of McDavid's deal was that he was putting faith in the management team to make good decisions with the money he left
That's
them.
what I'm saying.
I mean, look at the goalie, the way the goalie situation played out last year. Those decisions didn't work out very well. So we'll see what happens. I don't think they can address that even at this point. I guess a backup, but they're still going to be good. Mike Babcock will have them organized, and they'll be competitive.
They're going to be organized and structured with Mike. They're going to play a certain way, and he'll be demanding on it. And it's obvious that he talked to the star players and the core there, and they agreed upon it. So, I mean, listen, they need some help though.
Yeah.
Like, their back end needs some help, in my opinion. You know, the goaltending, like, it's just, you know. So I don't know what they're going to do. They got the Darnell Nurse thing. They got to, you know, whether they're going to move him, what they're getting back. You know, so that's my opinion on it.
More on the Oilers in just a moment. Gord, what do you have?
Next Oiler now. Jack Roslovic is a guy who a couple of years ago looked like his career was stalled. Had a 9-goal season, but since then kind of resurrected things with Carolina. And then last year in Edmonton, back-to-back 20-goal years. And now he's a
Toronto Maple Leaf. Jack Roslovic lands a 2-year deal with the Leafs, carrying a $4 million cap hit, and this will be a much better summer for Jack Roslovic because, as you remember, he was on the free agent board last July 1st, weathered a long wait and before he got his deal ultimately in October with the Oilers, but that proved to be a good fit. He had a nice season there, and the Leafs obviously have some roster holes up front, and so he's being tabbed here to step in, and he'll be playing a meaningful role for them.
Victor Arvidsson leaving the Boston Bruins, signing a 2-year deal at $5 million a season with the Detroit Red Wings. Arvidsson, 25 goals this year, was kind of reborn, was healthy. He is headed to Detroit.
That's the key for him, right? He's had nightmare back issues.
Yeah.
So that's the key for him. By the way, you reported earlier, Pierre, Corey Perry.
1 year times $1 million plus bonuses for Corey Perry. You know, one thing Corey Perry told me during the Tampa-Montreal first-round series, really appreciated the way Ken Holland and the Kings handled his trade to Tampa. Very transparent, made sure he was comfortable with it. Not surprised he's gone back to L.A. where he really enjoyed it.
All right. And by the way, on Roslovic, 5th team now in the last 4 years. Right?
Well, he's got a little bit of term now. Jack Roslovic on his way to Toronto, and that was a name we were linking to the Maple Leafs last year prior to him actually even signing at Edmonton. What do you make of it, Craig? Jack Roslovic as a player and joining the Maple Leafs, and where could he play?
Yeah, we talked about him last year at free agency at this time, and you know, the guy, he can put the puck in the net. I think, you know, he's got some relationship with Matthews, so it's sort of a good fit that way. We'll see, but he can put the puck in the net. So, and they need help scoring.
He showed this year that he can skate, he can make plays, he can play with big-time players, and he can put the puck in the net. Do I love his ground and pound game, I don't. But if he can move out there and complement other players and put some pucks in the back of the net, then that's what he's brought in for.
And for me, it's secondary scoring that he's going to provide. Like, it's not all on the top guys to do all the scoring. You need secondary scoring, so he provides that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and for me, I'm more looking at the skating element, because when you looked at one of the aspects of the Leafs last year, it did seem like they were lacking that foot speed. So is the fact that he skates well and he gets around the ice fairly well something that they were looking at sort of to elevate that part of their game?
Well, yeah, hang on. You trade away Nick Robertson, you don't qualify Michelli. Those are two sort of offensively inclined wingers you're going to need to find their offense. Whatever you think of the player, they did provide some offense. And one thing we didn't know about Toronto's vision was what they saw for their forwards. We kind of got a sense of what they wanted from their defense. Puck movers, more mobile. But, John Chayka didn't really lay out what do we see as, are we going to have two scoring lines, checking, physical. Roslovic, if that's a depth guy, if he's a third-line winger, it tells you he's going to think, three attacking lines, which is maybe a bit of an indication of where they might want to go.
Yeah, and there may be more moves, right, if they're going to be active in terms of trades and big ones in particular. Let's bring in Craig and Frankie. Craig, where do you stand on this?
Well, why don't we connect some dots here? Jack Roslovic was Austin Matthews' right winger at the National Team Development Program. And, is he going to play with Austin Matthews? But some familiarity. If he has to move up there, who would have thought Zach Hyman would have played with Connor McDavid? But a little bit of familiarity, a little bit of previous history together. The foot speed is there. I don't see him as a top-line player. But if you got to put him up there, there is some familiarity there. And I think the contract, the term, the dollars is a nice fit for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
If you're talking about depth scoring for the Toronto Maple Leafs, this is a guy that had 22 goals a couple years ago, 21 goals. So you're talking about a 20-goal scorer who's going to make $4 million a year. When the Leafs were in their window where we thought they were trying to win a Stanley Cup, the $4 million player that was going to get you 20 to 25 goals, it felt like that didn't exist very much in that lineup. It was we had to squeeze a lot out of guys that make $1 million, and we need a lot out of the guys that make a lot of money. So this is somewhere in the middle. It's something that's been a void in their lineup. And to put it into context about Jack Roslovic and his skating speed, 97th percentile in the NHL this season at the 22-plus mile-per-hour speed burst.
All right, thank you, guys. And again, a lot of action has already happened throughout the league. And one of the earlier signings was Erik Haula heading to L.A., and he joins us now here on Free Agent Frenzy. Erik, congrats. My understanding is there he is. There's Henny, the boy. I love it. So you're all heading out, shipping out to L.A. Take us through your thought process here and why it made sense for you and the whole Haula gang.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't lived in California yet, so we figured why not try that out. Just kidding. Obviously, it's a great place to live, and quality of life is high. The team has great potential. Excited about the coaching and all that's going on over there. So really excited to join and looking forward to the opportunity.
Yeah, and Peter Laviolette obviously getting the job there in L.A. How familiar are you with what you might expect out of him walking into L.A. this year?
Yeah, I expect a guy who's gonna demand a lot, and that's what you want from your coach. So. Like I said, just looking forward to get started.
And Anze Kopitar is leaving L.A., so, it fills a void up the middle of the ice, leadership as well. Drew Doughty's still there, but, you're a veteran in the league now. How much responsibility do you expect to take once you walk into that room in terms of Kopitar leaving, you and others coming in?
Yeah, I mean, been on a few teams now, and I think the best way to go into a new situation is baby steps. Just get to know everybody, your teammates, staff, all that, and then things kind of usually fall into place accordingly. So just looking forward to going in there, getting the family set up, and then, yeah, baby steps of getting to know everybody and then kind of feeling it out. That's what's been working lately, and that's what I look to do.
So what's Henny's plan once he gets out there? Is he a hockey player? Is he going to get into surfing in L.A.? What's the plan?
What are you excited to do, Henny?
Pretty excited to do the LA hockey right now, and I'm pretty excited to do junior teams.
Awesome.
Junior Kings? Right. Awesome.
Well, congrats to both of you, the whole family. Enjoy your time in L.A. Enjoy the summer, and thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Have a good one.
There's Erik Haula with Henny joining us. That's the first time I've interviewed a kid, but it's first of many here on Free Agent Frenzy. That's true. That is very true. I'm very used to that. Said at the breakers with Gord Miller. Gord, you're going to love that comment. Go ahead.
You sit 2 seats over from Jeff O'Neill, and you say that. So we have one to tell you about here that is, we think, the domino starting to fall. And this is goaltender Stuart Skinner to the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, 2 years at $3.75 annual average salary for Stuart Skinner going to the Winnipeg Jets. And really, it's part of the dominoes and how you put the pieces of that puzzle together. You know, there was some conversation internally. Do they bring Eric Comrie back? To a degree, I guess there's uncertainty, of course, around Connor Hellebuyck. But at least with Connor Hellebuyck, you have him under contract through 2031. So it's not always easy to get players into Winnipeg. So the Winnipeg Jets going with Stu Skinner as at least the potential backup.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, but we hear so much about players, giving very small lists to be dealt to. Connor Hellebuyck has given Winnipeg a pretty wide set of options, right?
Yeah, it is. But again, it depends on how you dissect what that list looks like, because, you could have a list as deep as 20 teams on it, and 15 teams on that list don't need a goaltending upgrade. Now, you're talking about a future Hall of Famer here, so it's a different conversation. But it is unique and different in terms of some of the shorter lists that we've seen, and Dylan Larkin and Darnell Nurse for sure.
All right, Brad?
Okay, thank you, Gord. That's a big one. I mean, it's
Spidey senses on overdrive right now.
Yes.
Where's Hellebuyck going?
Very nice pun. Skinner, I mean, this is a guy who he plays a lot wherever he goes. Right, he's not used to being a backup in the league. Now, maybe that is going to be a reality, but as indicated there, this might mean Hellebuyck's on his way out at some point.
I'll leave it to the goalie experts that are sitting across the room, Brian, but there's something about Stuart Skinner, and I know he's had his flaws, but I think there's one guy that can regroup and kind of reinvent himself and be a quality goaltender. I think he has to make some adjustments in his game. Those two guys can detail what those actually are, but I like his size, I like his competitiveness. There's just some technical stuff that he needs to fix in his game, and I think that there's one guy in the league, because I don't like a lot of the goaltenders, but this guy in particular, I think he can rebound and respond and be a quality guy in the NHL.
He battles and he plays.
Yeah, he battles and he plays. But if you're Winnipeg, are you thinking, is this Hellebuyck's replacement? Is this what we're looking at here? There's a lot to it, but he's one guy that I think can rebound.
Yeah, and it says a lot that he played in the Canadian market, left the Canadian market, and said, I'm coming back.
And
I think that says a lot about his mentality.
It wasn't the smoothest ride
no,
in
exactly.
that Canadian market.
Exactly.
At a minimum, he's an insurance plan, but I don't think Winnipeg, if they could do it the way they want, would pay a backup $4 million to Connor Hellebuyck.
I think we all sense where this is going. You mentioned the goalie panel with Gino. Let's send it over there. Go ahead, Gino.
All right, Bri, back alongside Marty Biron, Jamie McLennan, and Kevin Weeks, who joins us. Yeah. That's the big debate, guys. Are they bringing in Stuart Skinner at almost $4 million, $3.75 a year for the next 2 years, as a backup to Connor Hellebuyck, or is this just okay? Marty says no. This means Hellebuyck. They know Hellebuck's going.
It's impossible. You cannot think of having a Vezina Trophy netminder, a Hart Trophy netminder, and say, oh, your backup goalie is going to make $4 million. Now, what it could mean is that Stuart Skinner is a good 1B, and then you're going to trade Hellebuyck and get a goalie in return, and then you say that goalie in return and Stuart Skinner give us a good tandem, and they may even be at the money that Hellebuyck is making now. If you're getting a goalie in return that's making $5 and Stuart Skinner's $3.75, there's your $8.5 that Hellebuyck is making, and you're saying we're going to go with two guys doing it. I look at Buffalo, and if you make that deal with Buffalo, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is probably going the other way. So you're looking Luukkonen and Stuart Skinner as your tandem. I think that's a direction that Winnipeg would be very comfortable going into with this signing.
So keep in mind, Stuart Skinner goes to the finals 2 years in a row.
Stuart Skinner, who hasn't had a save percentage over 900 in 3 years.
When he flew out of Edmonton, he had a Purple Heart on because he had been in a war every night defensively. Because that was the dog park defense in Edmonton, and that's why they brought in Mike Babcock to clean that up. Stuart Skinner's a good goaltender. He's 6'4". Yes, O talked about maybe technically all of that type of stuff. He's going to be a lot more protected defensively in Winnipeg. I think it's a good fit because, he's got to play to his strengths. And regardless of what his partner's going to be, if it's Connor Hellebuyck or if it's goaltender X, Skinner can play, and he plays every night. He's durable. He played 60-plus games 2 years in a row. I think they've got themselves a goaltender that they can trust every night, and he'll fit into that system. Keep in mind, Connor Hellebuyck is not, from side to side, a huge athletic goaltender. So Skinner is going to fit right into that system a lot like Hellebuyck does.
Kevin, what's your take? What would you tell Winnipeg Jets fans right now that they're going to get in Stuart Skinner after what they saw from him in Edmonton and what they saw from him in Pittsburgh?
I would tell them to just calm down, just chill right now, because you bring in Stu Skinner, who's been to 2 Stanley Cup finals, as the gentlemen were just saying. He's battle-tested, he's experienced, he played in the dub, very familiar with the Western kind of conference, having played in Edmonton and played in WHL. This is like home for him. Yes, he's an Edmonton guy, but he goes over a province or two, and I think he's going to be very comfortable. I think this is a very nice, undervalued, by the way, signing in Stu Skinner based on the money. I saw a bunch of his games. I did a bunch of his games last year when he went to Pittsburgh coming down the stretch. The smile's back on his face. I think he's going to fit in there just fine. The question is, where is Hellebuyck going and when?
Yeah, and that's the point right now. Does this take away some negotiation weight, leverage from the Winnipeg Jets, where a team looking now to acquire Connor Hellebuyck says, we know you're not going to be spending $12 million a year for your goaltending for the next couple of years.
They could.
So you got to move $12 million in your goaltending on a team that really has holes at the 2C and has holes on the blue line.
I get that, but maybe you say, you know what, we don't have to do anything. We have our tandem. And so you still are working the phones. And I think right now, by this point, you have parameters of deals already in place with certain teams or conversation. So it's not just going to all of a sudden back off. But it's funny what Weeksy just said. He said that's an undervalued deal. I look at it in the other way, and I'm like, okay, if you would have said when Skinner went to Pittsburgh and at the end of the year that he was going to get close to $4 million a year, I would say, no, that's not going to happen. Maybe more in the low 3s, high 2s. I think this is what the market is saying now. Like, there's not a lot of goalies available, and we've discussed that from the beginning.
But him being 27, like he's not 34, 35. Yeah. That's the one thing, Weeksy. Like, there's still lots there. And you just mentioned $12 million
upside
in net. There. Tampa, the New York Rangers, New York Islanders, they're spending money in net because they've got $10 million goaltenders or more. So I don't think that's an egregious number given that the cap going up to 104. It's how you want to allot your money and how you spend it. And you've got strength in net now. If you were forced to or whatever, if you want to go forward with Skinner and Hellebuyck, that's a really nice tandem if you don't choose to move Hellebuyck. I've said this all along. I think Chevy needs to go all in and continue to add to that Hellebuyck comment at the end of the year saying, we're going to be right back as the President's Trophy winning team. That's what you need to do in Winnipeg.
So make enough moves that you prove to Hellebuyck it's worth seeing?
I would say this, too.
Sorry, go ahead. Weeksy?
Yeah, I was just going to say this, guys. Here's my one thing, too. Sebastian Cossa, everybody could say he was great up in Edmonton with the Oil Kings in the dub. He was very good in Grand Rapids in the AHL with Detroit. He just signed for 2 sheets. 2 sheets per for Utah. So if I can get Stu Skinner for $3.75, just a shade under 4, that's a good bit of business there for the Winnipeg Jets.
Agreed.
I think we all agree. Stu Skinner could end up being the #1, but the question is, how long do they wait before they move Connor Hellebuyck? We're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Hazy?
Yeah, we most certainly are. And if we are here, you know it's happening in Winnipeg as well. And let's head there now and catch up with our TSN Jets reporter, Danielle Bain. So, Danielle, we have some Jets news here. Stuart Skinner signing a 2-year deal. What do you make of the news?
Well, obviously, you guys have talked all about the fit and what he can bring to this team. But there's 2 main things that I think stand out to me. And number 1 is he wants to be here. And, you know, you've talked about him being in Edmonton. He knows what it's like to be in a Canadian market. But I think that really sparks a lot of conversation about someone that wants to actually be a part of this organization. I know there's been no confirmation of Hellebuyck formally requesting a trade, but him coming in and wanting to be here really sits well with a room like this. And number 2 is that, you know, talking to other people that have covered Stuart Skinner in Edmonton, you know, he was a great player and teammate that his teammates loved to be around. He was great in the room and someone that can fit in seamlessly in that way. And throughout the last season covering the Jets, whenever I've talked to players in the room, that's a really, really big component of this organization when you come to Winnipeg. being a teammate that someone can rely on, having that close-knit family in there. And as we've talked about, the dominoes falling, if Connor Hellebuyck leaves, what are other guys going to think? Well, Stuart Skinner coming in, wanting to be here and being a great teammate and good locker room guy is going to be a great fit for this Winnipeg Jets team.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Danielle. Appreciate it. Again, Stuart Skinner is now off the board, and he's on his way to Winnipeg. Free agent frenzy continues here on TSN.
Whoa! Stuart Skinner flashing the leather and absolutely robbing Eric Robinson late. Down in front came loose. Oh, and Skinner came over on the breaker. Skinner again moves over and stops Jarvis. Oh my goodness, how did he get that right pad out there? That was ridiculous.
Free Agent Frenzy is presented by Harvey's. Summer just got hotter with Harvey's. Burgers, shakes, snacks, and more are all just $3. Harvey's, it's a beautiful thing.
Wimbledon returns tomorrow with early round coverage beginning at 6 a.m. Eastern, 3 a.m. Pacific. Catch all the action on TSN and TSN Plus. The Edmonton Oilers, obviously we're waiting to see what kind of action could still come out of Edmonton. A couple of former players have already signed somewhere else. We're joined now by Ryan Rishaug. Let's begin with Jack Roslovic leaving Edmonton, making his way to Toronto. Shagar, what do you make of that news?
Well, I think that $4 million price tag, that's the reason why the Oilers weren't going to consider retaining him, not at that dollar figure. You know, the thing about Jack Roslovic is he's a nice regular season player. Skates well, he's got a nice shot. But if he's not bearing his chances, he's not doing a lot else out there. And playoff performance has been an issue. 15 playoff games in the last couple of years, 1 goal was a healthy scratch for Rod Brind'Amour in the playoffs 2 playoffs ago, and then didn't score at all for the Oilers. So good regular season player there, but needs to take that career to the next level by showing he can do it at playoff time.
Another former Oiler, Stuart Skinner, on his way back to a Canadian market, much like Roslovic going from Edmonton to Toronto. Now Skinner coming back to Canada and signing in Winnipeg. Considering the exit and the noise around him in Edmonton, any surprise that he'd be open to returning to Canada?
No, I'm not surprised at all. I don't think Stuart Skinner had an issue with the spotlight or the media attention, that sort of stuff that came with being in Edmonton. He handled it all really well. Danielle Bain's going to love him, by the way, because he's an excellent talker, and he's a goalie who talks on game days, which is getting more and more rare in this league. But listen, Skinner was comfortable with his situation here. You know, I don't think it ever really bothered him or got to him that much. He seemed to deal with it all pretty well. So, no, the fact that he's going back into a Canadian market, you know, a little bit different expectations, I would say, from an Oiler team that have been back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. Really, this is about if Stuart Skinner can find a career best performance this upcoming season. Like, everybody knows he's a pretty solid goaltender. Excuse me, Brian, but he's got to find that next level to reestablish himself as a starter in this league.
So Jack Roslovic going from Edmonton to Toronto against Stuart Skinner, who had already left Winnipeg last year, or Edmonton last year on his way to Pittsburgh and now up to Winnipeg. Now we wait to see what the Oilers are going to do. They have been active over the last couple of weeks, Ryan. Not a ton of cap flexibility. What are you bracing for when it comes to the Oilers?
Well, I was just waiting on this Darnell Nurse trade. I mean, it's such a big number that what they do with that contract, how much money they have to retain if they can move it, it kind of lends itself to what they're able to do next. Like, they'd love to add up front if they can, but what space do they have to do that? You know, if you think back to those season-end media availabilities and how intense things were, you know, you look at this lineup and you think, how much change can actually be made when you look at where they're at on the cap? You heard the 2 star players talking about how they've been regressing and they need to get better and they need to do it fast. Those were intense postseason comments, and I think the organization does feel it needs to get better. But I guess the point I would make about the Oilers is, you know, heading into that first round of the playoffs, all 4 of their top 4 centers were hurt. They were banged up. They couldn't defend, and that was a huge issue this year. They're going to have to address that. I don't know that management is going to overreact and force trades that don't make sense just to change things up. I think there was some belief in the group they carried into the playoffs, and if they can be better defensively as a group, that their core is still solid and they can still be in contention. So as much as those end-of-season media availabilities might have made you feel like massive change was coming to Edmonton, I don't think that's practical, and I don't think it's going to happen.
All right, thank you, Ryan. We appreciate your standing by out there in Edmonton in case news does end up breaking or in case that Darnell Nurse trade ends up happening. So let's go there, guys. Darnell Nurse sounds like he wants to go east. You know, maybe Pittsburgh, maybe Philly, maybe Boston. He's got a big ticket. His reputation is not what it was when he signed that contract. What should teams be looking at here when it comes to Darnell Nurse?
Well, it's going to be fascinating how you handle this situation. This isn't a Zach Werenski or a player of that ilk where people are dying to get their hands on him. He's had his struggles, and the number that is attached with him, that's the first thing teams look at before anything, is that $9 million number. And if he's going to pick and choose at that price tag, there are so many variables that are included with this guy. I don't even know how you make the transaction happen.
And it's interesting, though, you know, the contract is probably the most reasonable right now, given that the cap's gone up and you're seeing what everyone's going for, right? Was he just over $9 million? So, yeah, you know, it's a tough pill to swallow. But when you look at that number right now and you think of what everyone's getting, you look at someone like, you know, San Jose as an example, they need defenseman.
Does he want to stay out there, though?
Right, though, that's the problem. And so does he want to stay out there? But if you think about that, a guy that, you know, he's got, you know, that leadership quality. He's a veteran, so it's a young group, so we could bring him along. You know, he's had that playoff experience, so that's a big question mark as well. So interesting. But, he, you know, he battles, he competes. He's a physical guy, can be intimidating.
He was one of the big questions in Edmonton was goaltending hurting Darnell Nurse, or were some of the errors from Darnell Nurse in his own zone hurting the goaltending? what comes first? Is it the chicken or the egg? So I don't know if you put this guy with a solid goaltender, his performance goes like this. It's one of those things because a lot of times when the puck was going in the net, we talked about it before the show started, you saw Darnell Nurse digging it out of the net. So was it his errors? Was it goaltending mistakes? He's just like Skinner for me. I think if you put him in the right situation where he can focus on being physical in a straightforward D, make straight outlet passes, I think he can be successful. But I don't know what it is.
Quieter
or what
market,
happened with
maybe?
Edmonton.
A lot of times, a player gets paid an enormous amount of money. Is he worth it? Is he not worth it? Whatever. But the player feels like he has to live up to that number. And I feel that's happened with Darnell Nurse a little bit. But if he can go to a team where O-Dog was talking, be direct, be simple. Just we want you to be a great defender, good penalty killer, be physical, and just make the simple plays with the puck. We don't care how much money you make. That's all we're asking you to do. He can be a good player.
Yes.
He provides a lot of. He has a lot of qualities to him. He's a good teammate. He's physical, big, size. There's a lot of good elements there.
If he was available today as a free agent,
That's what I'm saying.
would he sign a $7 million a year deal?
Yes.
Possibly 8.
So you're like, okay, so maybe Edmonton has to eat $1 million or $2 million, but not 3 or 4 or 5. Talk about him wanting Philly. Philly, under talk, is an incredibly structured team. Like, they are very defense metric friendly to everyone. The thing about Darnell that is still excellent is he can really skate.
Yes.
Like, he's physically he's still a strong player. He can skate, he's strong, he can move. Some of his decision making, that might leave you asking questions a little bit, but the actual physical tools are still there. And if he doesn't feel like he's got to force offense or chase points or whatever it might be, which a lot of guys do feel that when they get that big contract, he's still very much an NHL player, can play in your top 4, but with a little bit. He can't be your number 1, but if he's your number 4 in a structured system, he can be a good player.
I'll say this now that the goalies aren't in the room, they're eating lunch. It's tough to make a mistake, and every time you do, the goaltender can't bail you out.
They're listening, just for the record, and they're going to come in and they will address that comment.
They know what I'm talking about.
I don't disagree with you, but I understand what you're saying. Craig, Frankie, where do you stand on Darnell Nurse and the Edmonton Oilers?
I have one quick question before I want to make a comment about the Edmonton Oilers. Craig, you had Jay Bouwmeester. Remember how everybody expected more out of him? And what did you do? You got him to just play right within his game.
Yeah, Bo was a great player for us, really was solid partner with Parenko. And all they did was check. And they didn't make fancy plays. I mean, I remember talking to our D coach at the time. I think Bo's iced the puck 5 times today. Didn't matter. If he didn't have a play, it was down the ice. Played to his strengths, great skater, huge. Big guy, long, and that's what he became, and he was a great player for us.
I iced the puck 5 times in a game once. I got sent to Wilkes-Barre. And now you're here. and then you become an analyst.
But Jay, the expectation, he was going to get all this offense, and he had to skate up the ice and produce points, and you got him and just got him right into being a really good player. Can we get that board of the Edmonton Oilers up, please? I want to show everybody the board here.
So while we wait for the board, just really...
I love the way Craig C. Button is running the operation.
I keep hearing about the core of the Edmonton Oilers. I feel like I'm back with the Toronto Maple Leafs core. So what did the Toronto Maple Leafs core do when it mattered? Oh, that would be nothing. And the Edmonton Oilers, we keep talking about, you think this is a Stanley Cup team? Listen, I'm standing up here, and so should Stan Bowman, because if he sits down, that seat isn't able to be sat down in because the seat is too hot. He's got massive work to do if he thinks this team is a Stanley Cup contender.
So I think, listen, right, as of today, no games have been played, no one has won and lost. But we can analyze every team like this on paper. And in the Western Conference, I can think of 6 teams right off the top of my head that are definitively better than that. Even with Connor McDavid, even with Leon Draisaitl. We're talking about teams. So we're talking about Colorado, Dallas, Vegas, Minnesota, Utah, Anaheim. There you go. There's your. I don't think you can make an argument at this point when you look at that those teams are better. As far as the Darnell Nurse thing, if I was going to overpay for a player, and maybe there's some forwards that would disagree with this, I'll let them have the floor. I would rather overpay for a defenseman than a forward, because if the forward doesn't produce, I'm not getting nearly as close to my money's worth as I would need to. At least I can hide a player like Darnell Nurse and play him 22 minutes a night and get some penalty killing out of him and maybe get him to buy into checking, like everything that everyone said there. So it's maybe changed a little bit now. how people look at Darnell Nurse. He's not a $9 million player, but he's not a $2 million defenseman either. And maybe it's both things. It's maybe Darnell going to somewhere else where there's different expectations, and him saying, I'm in a new team here now. I need to do something that is maybe going to help this group, and it's different. It feels different than how things were operating in Edmonton.
Real quick, Rasmus Anderson just signed for 8.5.
So there you go.
Well, there you
You're
go.
breaking news. You're the director.
And
throwing the boards. I love it.
When Darnell Nurse leaves, if he leaves, they will have to replace him. Like, you can't be like, oh, he's gone, and now it's addition by subtraction. Like, you're going to have to replace his minutes. You're going to have to get more on a Wallman. I'll say this to Craig. I know, like, I'm not saying they've done a great job. I'm not saying they're a Stanley Cup favorite. How far is that from the team that made it to back-to-back finals? Like, that team that made it back-to-back finals was not perfect by any stretch. They got a couple players that can drive it big time.
Pretty good. And I'll put up the 24 lineup and say that was a contending team that they downgraded.
I'm not saying they're better, but I'm not saying they're not the worst team in the league. They're not miles back. When you have Draisaitl, and listen, Anaheim has 3 defenders signed. I don't think Anaheim's ahead of Edmonton, if we're being honest here.
But how far off is San Jose from chasing them down, too? Like, they're coming.
They have 2 defenders signed.
I understand that. I'm
we'll
just
see
saying.
what happens at the end. I'm just saying they haven't done a great job, but they're not miles away from course correcting with good decisions, fiscally responsible, and goaltending, of course, the ultimate question.
Other than that, they're right close.
Well, every team's like that, right? Every team's got,
But they consider themselves a Stanley Cup contender, Mike, and that's why Connor McDavid is there. If this was today and he didn't sign that contract, he'd be a free agent today. He chose to sign a contract.
I don't think they believe they're a Stanley Cup contender. They want to be. I don't think they think they are.
But that's what their goal is, and that's what Connor McDavid's goal is.
And then we haven't even talked about the coach.
Well, they wanted to
Does
be
the coach make them better, and all those guys you don't like quite as much?
Yeah.
Does it make them more organized, better, more effective? That's why they got him.
They wanted to be very selective with the coach because they thought this was the guy that was going to make them win a Stanley Cup. Okay, great, you got your coach. But we just talked about 4 other elements that they don't quite have. Is that coach really going to lift up the players in the bottom 6 and give them that much more autonomy and make them that great of players? I can't see that happening.
They're banking on it.
Yeah,
they're legit banking on it.
You either are or you aren't.
Right?
Like, and we have too much sample size that too much runs through the guys at the top of that lineup.
The host is so jealous that he can't argue with you guys.
I want to jump in. I feel like a chair ump, and it's like Djokovic and Nadal just going back and forth. And I don't know which way to look because it's take after take after take.
That was too long for a Wimbledon rally. That's more French Open.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe that was more of a French Open take. Well, much more still to come. More signings still to come as well. Happy Canada Day, everyone. TSN Free Agent Frenzy continues here on TSN.
Okay, alongside our World Cup analyst Christian Jack, who's done such a great job throughout the tournament analyzing the performances of the players. What's your take on the young Canadian Brian Hayes, who's wearing the captain's armband today back at the free agent frenzy?
Pitiful, to be fair, James. I thought it was a pretty rubbish performance. You know, he's waited his entire life for a moment like this, and just to go out there and perform like that, technically weak, didn't have good pacing, embarrassed himself, as I said, a really shocking performance overall. And, you know, I think he kind of crumbled a little bit like the Dutch on penalties.
Harsh but fair, frankly. We love you, Hayes. Actually, the only real advice I'd give is instead of the suit next time, go with a boys' medium golf shirt.
You knew he'd be wearing that.
If JD could get a tighter shirt, it would be impossible.
Yeah, honestly, I'm waiting.
Casey did you dirty, man. I love that
harsh.
guy. He did you dirty.
That's harsh.
Rubbish.
Like, when you throw rubbish in there,
it lands. I mean, he's English. They're tied right now. It's not like they're exactly performing that well, right, on other TSN channels. But I'm somewhat waiting for like a Ron Burgundy moment here where Duthie's going to come pouring into the studio at the end.
Wait.
Yes, right at the end and say, I'm here. We can do the show now. But I've loosened up. A little bit tight out of the gate, but I think we're all
your line mate's got your back now. You're not going anywhere.
Best line mates in the league.
Not going anywhere.
Best line mates in the league. How lucky are you that he's your line mate, Craig Berube? Because we have video that we're going to play here in a moment. You're going to get flashbacks. This is probably every other Tuesday for Craig when he was in the NHL.
And cold sweats.
We got lots of.
If what's coming up,
December 11th, 1999. December 11th, 1999. There's Ty Domi and Craig Berube.
So they should fight. It'd be great if they fought each other.
Yeah, that would have been
MJ
nice.
right now?
I'm going for a breakaway.
Nowhere near.
So, Craig, that's you and who's that? Luke Richardson? Is that Sandy McCarthy?
Sandy McCarthy, Adam Burt, Damon Lanco.
MJ's in the stands.
And Luke Richardson grabs Mike Johnson. And what are you thinking right here?
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Boy, my back of the head there. I'm right at the top of the circle, just getting my head reshapen. But the worst part about it is they finally got Luke Richardson off me. I'm barely bleeding, barely conscious. And somehow Craig Berube decided to go grab Cujo. Now
you're in one.
I'm not a hero.
I like goal. I like grabbing goals.
So I'm by myself because Luke Richardson's in the box. I got to go by, and against my better wishes or judgment, I have to sort of stop.
Sure.
And be like, hey, leave my goalie alone. And Chief, as calm as can be, he just said to me, he's like, if you don't move, I won't kill you. And I just went, well,
perfect.
I'm not moving.
Sounds like a deal to me.
Turning into a mine.
And he did it, though. He didn't beat me up. He'd already had his full with everybody else in that skirmish. That was a tough one.
Well, the whole thing was, you know, I forget what Ty did.
He was doing something.
Karpovtsev had hit Lindros and got in a big fight, and him and McCarthy were going back and forth.
It all blends together.
That was my first fight in the NHL.
Well, you
not a good one.
It was okay. Luke Richardson and then Craig Berube.
Yeah, right.
Not exactly ideal. And your head coach was Pat Quinn, so you had to
It was
be
Pat's
ready.
fault, though. We were at home. They had all those tough guys out there, and he put out like me and Dmitry Kristich and Thomas Caberlet. And what do we do?
What are you going to do out
We
there?
had the same kind of coach. We had Roger Nielsen, who's the biggest goon coach in the NHL. There was one point we had myself, Sandy McCarthy, and Gino Ojek, and we're all sitting there together on a bench. I'm looking at him like, what a shit show.
Do we have a swear jar? We need one here.
It was unbelievable.
There you go. There's a swear jar, just in case. That's the first one. We're almost 2 hours in. I love it. Laura, maybe you guys can top it. Carlo, Emily,
someone give me an ice
open
bag.
season.
I mean, that's a tough segue to go from that to that. And we're still going to go back to the Schmedium shirts that everyone's wearing for covering the World Cup for us at TSN.
James isn't really that jacked, though. That's all fake.
Is it AI? I was going to say
It's
AI.
AI.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this Atlantic division. And last year, the most competitive division in the NHL. 5 of the teams made the playoffs. 4 of them put up more than 100 points. We've seen what the Florida Panthers did. And this is a team that didn't even make the postseason last year. And we heard Craig Button say this is his favorite to win the Cup coming out of the East. They're doing everything they can so far, Carlo, to make sure it's not back-to-back years without making the playoffs.
Yeah, they're putting the NHL on notice because, you know, you look at last year, all the injuries that they had and all the hockey that they played over the 3 calendar seasons, you kind of felt like there was going to be a step back. And you lose out Sasha Barkov before the season even starts. That's a huge hole to fill. And then they were hampered with injuries from there on end. And you look at the Carolina Hurricanes who win the Stanley Cup. I bet you they were counting their blessings that they didn't have to go through Florida in the playoffs. So you look at what they've done to revamp that roster. The biggest move is you unite the Tkachuk brothers. And we know how much of a handle they're going to create in the National Hockey League. That's a big move for them. You're getting Barkov back as healthy. We saw him at the World Hockey Championships. He put on a show helping Finland win a gold medal. Seth Jones is going to be fully healthy. Aaron Ekblad is going to be fully healthy. The biggest question mark for Florida, as good as their roster is, and you wonder what the finished product is going to be when they're all said and done here in free agency, is in net. They lose Bobrovsky. They replace it with Markstrom and Akira Schmid. Is that enough to get them back? I think it is to get them back into the playoffs, but into Stanley Cup contention. But they're a force to be reckoned with right now.
And no question about the toughness as well. As there is an off year for the Panthers and for the Maple Leafs, Emily, it was these other teams that were coming up. We saw the Buffalo Sabres finally end that lengthy playoff drought. The Red Wings were oh so close to joining them there. So while we see the Panthers shoring up, what is the rest of the division doing trying to keep up with them?
Yeah, Laura, I've got my eyes on the two U.S.-based Original Six teams in this division, the Detroit Red Wings and the Boston Bruins, and neither of them can afford to take a big step back. Now, Detroit's playoff drought has been long documented. We don't really need to get into it, but the biggest issue that they had last season was 5-on-5 scoring. Adding Victor Arvidsson definitely helps address that, but I don't think it takes any pressure off Steve Yzerman to absolutely nail the Dylan Larkin trade or potentially add more pieces. And then there's the Bruins. I know a lot of their players were anxious. What type of things can we add this season? Yes, they made the playoffs largely behind Jeremy Swayman and David Pastrnak, but once they were there, they didn't really belong. So far, all we've seen is one winger out and Arvidsson, one in Peterka. They moved Korpisalo. That cleared some cap space. I know they're looking for more cap space. I'm very curious to see if they do anything with it.
And then it goes back to that, what we were talking about, well, Western Conference was the more competitive conference. Well, the East has got something to say about that. So we should see a lot of moves from the Atlantic, a lot of moves when it comes. We're going to do breaking news for FIFA World Cup as well. England scoring as well, Hayes, and your, I guess, your mortal enemy now, KJ.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, you're right.
He might be a little happy. Did you get to eat, Brian? That's the most important thing.
That's right. I will make sure to do that. And Mike Johnson, Johnny, come on in. He's the biggest English super fan of all time. He's over there watching the game.
I know. I had a moment. Yeah,
it's 2-1 England. So
Harry
you think
Kane
they're going to survive? Harry Kane.
Yeah. Beautiful strike. Yes.
You a fan, Craig?
Yes.
Of England?
No, not really.
You're rooting for Canada.
I'm rooting for Canada. But soccer's been great.
Yeah, it has.
Really haven't focused on it too much over my lifetime until this year. I really enjoyed watching it.
Well, this is the place to be on
There you
TSN,
go. Yeah,
right?
it's great.
Canada, Morocco on Saturday. All right, Free Agent Frenzy. We're almost 2 hours into the frenzy. More signings still to come. And it continues here on TSN.
Free Agent Frenzy is presented by Harvey's. Summer just got hotter with Harvey's. Burgers, shakes, snacks, and more are all just $3. Harvey's, it's a beautiful thing.
The 2026 FIFA World Cup round of 32 continues today as Belgium takes on Senegal at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific on TSN, followed by host United States taking on Bosnia and Herzegovina at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on TSN, CTV, and Crave. The World Cup continues as we speak. England scoring late. They're up 2-1. But that is not what we're concerned about today. We're talking free agent frenzy here in the NHL, and a number of signings have already happened. And a guy who's very familiar with playing in a Canadian market, started his career in a Canadian market, is going back to a Canadian market, was a big part of the Memorial Cup a couple months ago in a Canadian market. He joins us now, Luke Schenn, who has re-signed back in Vancouver. Luke, great to see you. And take us through the process here, going back to Vancouver. Why did this make sense for you?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you're not really sure what's going to happen when it comes to free agency, and obviously I'm, getting older, so you're just not really sure what's going to happen. But, at the end of the day, had a couple choices, but for me, the Vancouver fit just makes sense. Obviously, I played there a couple times before. I'm, a BC guy now, and where I spend my off season, and at the end of the day, I mean, I never, ever did want to leave the Canucks. I enjoyed my time there, very familiar with the organization, and obviously, management there. And Ryan Johnson was actually a guy that really helped me out when I was kind of, down and out in my career when I was in Utica back in the day. And I know Manny Malhotra, and just, I care about the organization, and I'm pumped to be there.
Well, it's an interesting situation in Vancouver where you mentioned Manny, who's now taken over as the head coach. They just drafted his son, 3rd overall. You have history playing with your brother back in Philly. What do you anticipate that to kind of be like with Manny there, Caleb there? It's going to be a unique situation in Vancouver.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've known Manny a little bit just in terms of he was my assistant coach in Vancouver, and also when I was with the Leafs my second go around, so I'm familiar with him. And I've always thought he's an unbelievable coach, very prepared and good communicator. And obviously, I haven't met his son yet, but I'd imagine it's the same thing. It's going to be, professional, but at the same time, obviously, everyone understands the dynamics, which is exciting for everyone, and he deserves the opportunity to, where he got drafted. Obviously, he's a heck of a player, and he's going to be a huge part of, obviously, the present and the future of the Canucks. And, that's why guys like myself and veterans are there to help him along.
Absolutely. Congrats on heading back to Vancouver, and we appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You got it. There's Luke Schenn signing a 1-year deal in Vancouver. And they're an interesting team, right? They're in transition. They were the worst team in the league last year. Quinn Hughes isn't there anymore. They've got a lot of young guys. Again, Caleb Malhotra's there. They have a rookie head coach. I mean, it's heavy lifting. I don't think they're expecting to be a playoff team this year, but if you're running the operation there, Craig, what's kind of mandatory in terms of what they can establish this year?
Yeah, and I think that's why they went out and signed Luke Schenn. You bring in a veteran presence, guy that's won a cup, he's been around, he's a great teammate. He can help a lot of these young guys move along and also add some stability to their lineup throughout the season.
So, in terms of Vancouver and kind of what else they might do, they got some money. You got to get the kids opportunities, right? Like,
Jake DeBrusk's going to be there. Like, I started thinking about the players they have that maybe don't want to be or might not the right fit timeline in their careers that they will last for the duration of their contracts. Obviously, Elias Pettersson's up top, and everyone will pay attention to him. But whether it's Besser, whether it's DeBrusk, players like that, I would be curious to see what the market would be and what their appetite might be, even if with trade protection, to move along. And also, just quick little point of reference. Oh, I know you love the Nuggets. Last year on this day, the team that spent the most money?
Vancouver
Canucks. Doesn't always guarantee you anything.
You start and end with what happens or what he is going to be with Elias Pettersson. You've got a guy making 11.6. We were just talking about him off air. Used to be a #1 center in the league. He was at one time, and as soon as the ink dried on his contract, he morphed into just a pedestrian player. And I don't know what happened. I don't know how it's possible. I was his biggest fan and his biggest supporter. But when he comes to training camp next year with new management, a new coach, The Sedins are there. I'm sure they've tried to support him in the best way possible, but what is he going to be? Is there any way to get his game back on track? Some people around the league don't think it's possible. Can it look anything like a quality player to maybe elevate all the players around him, a Besser, a DeBrusk? Because if he comes back and he's the old guy that signed the contract and he's a 100-point guy who's dynamic, it's almost like everything is kind of better than what it is. But if he's a guy you don't even want to put a jersey on him in the dressing room, you got serious problems.
Well, it also feels like there's a bit of a haze over the organization right now, right? So now all of a sudden you bring in a Brendan Gallagher. Montreal retains 50%, good on them, sending him back there. So you got sort of some leadership. Now you got a Luke Shen on the back end. So now you're seeing sort of a pulse, kind of a little bit of a change in terms of direction, leadership. You got Paul Carter coming in, some speed, some pace, some energy. So trying to uplift them right now because it's been pretty difficult, especially down the middle.
It has. More signings, more news coming in. Gord?
Yeah, we got a bunch to talk about here. Chris is busy typing it, so I'll tell you it. Devin Levi going from Buffalo to Edmonton. So the Oilers get Devin Levi.
Interesting.
Dominoes.
Yeah, so again, dominoes. And Levi is an interesting case. Of course, he went to Buffalo in a deal with Florida once upon a time, and the thought was that in Buffalo he would be their number one guy. And he never really got traction there, so now he goes to Edmonton. CJ, we also have another signing to talk about, a fascinating one. One of the two Ducks unrestricted free agent D, Jacob Trouba and John Carlson, and Trouba has gone to San Jose.
He goes to San Jose, yes, and the Ducks did have some interest in keeping him. They were only willing to go to a 2-year offer on this player. The San Jose Sharks get him on a 4-year deal at $8.25 million.
So a raise.
Which is a slight raise from where he's been at an $8 million contract that just expired. And, I think it's a sign of where we're at in this marketplace. Obviously, San Jose is a team that needs defensemen. We've seen them make a deal this offseason for Michael Kesselring. It's been linked as a place perhaps where Morgan Riley might end up playing. But Trouba gets to go and be a veteran presence on a team that has a lot of enticing young players and prospects coming into its roster.
So, Pierre, where does that leave John Carlson?
Yeah. So, listen, John Carlson, who was in negotiations with the Hurricanes right up to when the market opened today at noon, didn't like the last offer they got from Carolina, but still very much interested in Carolina. But in the meantime, other teams jumped in at noon Eastern, including the likes of Tampa and Philadelphia. So, my understanding right now is there's still his camp led by agent Rick Kerr, and they're still going through all those options. John Carlson has a decision to make with his family about what feels right to him. He's going to end up looking pretty good contract-wise. I think it's more about the fit right now between Tampa, Philly, Carolina. So we should know by the end of the day.
All right, and Dregs, we started the day talking about Zach Werenski, and this is a domino that's going to be pretty important. This is a piece that now, again, he's got term left in his contract.
Yeah.
The Blue Jackets aren't obligated to move him. But what direction is it moving in?
Well, it's moving in the direction of trying to get it back on the rails with the Columbus Blue Jackets. And that's not to suggest that there's a long history now with Zach Werenski and the Columbus Blue Jackets. No, it's more about just calming things down and letting the dust settle a little bit, because there's been a lot of emotional tone around this story dating all the way back to last weekend and the draft. What I know is that Zach Werenski, along with his agent Judd Moldaver and general manager Don Waddell, did have a conversation today, and that's specifically what it was about. Okay, let's just settle down here. We know that Werenski blocked the trade to the Dallas Stars. He wasn't willing to go there. This isn't saying that Waddell can't come back to Werenski or Judd Moldaver and say, hey, we have something of interest from Toronto or something interest from Tampa Bay or another team for that matter. But it seems more likely, unless that happens, that Werenski will be back in camp with the Blue Jackets, and you see where it goes from there.
All right, but as they say, sometimes the toothpaste is hard to put back in the tube once the conversations have started.
Bobrovsky, 3 years, $7 million per to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Sergei Bobrovsky. Well, a Drager bomb. A Drager bomb right at 2 o'clock. So Sergei Bobrovsky signs with Toronto. Give us the numbers again. 3 years.
3-year term, $7 million, which has been speculated on, but we knew it was close, but now it's closer than close.
It's a two-time Stanley Cup champion, a two-time Vezina Trophy winner.
Yeah.
Turning 38. So lots to chew on. The goalie panel is drooling over there. Brian, we'll send it back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Gord. We've been waiting for this news, right? It felt like it was moving in this direction the last couple of days. Sergei Bobrovsky going to the Maple Leafs. Craig, you were talking about it earlier. You think this can have a really big impact on what the Leafs can possibly do competitively this season?
100%. I think it shows signing him that you're in it to be competitive and push to get into the playoffs, and that's a huge start. And like I said, I know his age is up there, but he's a solid goalie. Now you have the tandem back together, him and Stolarz. Pretty solid in net, in my opinion. I mean, and it shows the team that they're pushing the right buttons to get back in the playoffs.
A couple important factors with the goaltender. Looking at him playing in Toronto is his age, how he can respond from his year last year, and how he's going to respond to where the shots are coming from playing with the Toronto Maple Leafs, because they gave up some shots last year that he's probably not going to be used to. They have to tighten up back there. And it's just like, if you look at the way the Florida Panthers have played in their own zone, they've been pretty airtight over the last 2 or 3 years, and they've given him a great opportunity to make that first save, and then everything's cleared out. So it's definitely going to be different. It can be a great sign if he's a 40 to 50 game guy and he goes in there and plays like the Bobrovsky of old. It's a great signing.
I agree with you, especially because of the defensive lapses, especially because of it last year. But I'm also going to say there's a lot of holes on this Toronto Maple Leafs team. So if you can't address them all, but one that can have a massive, massive impact if you got a goaltender who can come up big, as we talked about. So to me, I really like it. You know, you can say, okay, $7 million, 3 years, he's 38, but at the end of the day, he can be a major difference maker between the fights.
So is Stolarz staying?
Well, what
happens now?
Well, something else has to happen. Whether it's Hilda because he's probably not going to clear waivers. So maybe you try to recreate the Florida tandem that was so good with Bobrovsky and Stolarz together, and maybe you get more out of Stolarz. Maybe they're able to split it down the middle, 41 each, and Stolarz doesn't have the pressure on his body because he's had a hard time staying healthy, so he gets more rest between games. We know his record was way better when he had 3 days rest. I'm sure you were aware of all these kind of numbers. And maybe you get the best of both, and neither one is taxed too much, because when they are right, they're both really good. But it's not without risk, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, the age, the performance last year, and it's going to force Hildeby, who has to clear waivers.
They got to make a decision on that.
They're not going to lose a goalie. That would be poor asset management.
They're going to make a decision on that.
I think what Chief was saying is like the idea that they're sending a message which is clear as day now. They want to be competitive. They want to be winners next year. That message is to everyone, including Austin.
Well, and his resume oozes credibility, right? You look at the history of Sergei Bobrovsky. He's won a Vezina in 2013, won a Vezina in 2017. He won back-to-back cups. He was a Vezina finalist in 2024, seventh all-time in goalie wins. He's going to the Hall of Fame. Might have a chip on his shoulder, too.
Sure.
Right? Leaving Florida, heading to Toronto. Gino, I could see you and the boys ready. Noodles, you're ready to chomp at the bit here and get after it. What do you guys make of this? Bob on his way to Toronto.
As we look down the resume, yes, he's won a couple of Stanley Cups. Yes, he's won a couple of Vezinas. But this is a signing that's loaded with ifs. If he could bounce back to better form than he had last year, where he recorded his worst save percentage in 3 years. If he can fight off Father Time. Weeksy, what's the question? What can Leaf fans actually expect from Sergei Bobrovsky, a guy who's going to turn 38 before next season starts?
I think they're going to get some of that pedigree from Sergei Bobrovsky. Not that a guy that was undrafted that's going to be a Hall of Fame lock down at Yonge and Front Street when it's all over. Not that he needed any additional motivation. The Florida Panthers didn't want to come with the cream. They didn't really want to pay him. They went out and got Markstrom and said, see you later. How's that for winning 2 Stanley Cups and helping advance the organizational franchise value? Sergei Bobrovsky is going to come in there. I think he's going to play very well. I agree with everybody. If it's 50 games or less, I think that's a sweet spot for him. But he's going to up the professionalism in that group. The long hair is fine. The earrings are fine. But it's about performance in Toronto, and he's going to help to drive that in the culture.
I agree. I think this is a great signing. And, yes, I know you keep coming back to 38. It's a monster number, but
we've just seen the Leafs in the past sign guys who are beyond their primes and then go, what happened to this guy? He was so good over there and he can't bring it over here. We've seen this happen in the past. My question, I'm not saying it's going to happen here. I'm asking you, what are the odds that it doesn't happen and that he does continue to maintain his level?
He doesn't have to play 65 games, just what Weeksley said. He can be part of a tandem. He can give you 45 to 50 games. Then you're going to have Anthony Stolarz. We just talked about Akhtiamov, butchered his name, who won the MVP at the Calder Cup. So,
in the minors.
So, yes, and he doesn't need waivers. So now you can have a three-headed monster that can chew up 84 games. What you need is him to play 45 to 50 games and be playoff ready. If this team gets better and gets back to the playoffs, that's what you need. You're paying for that pedigree. So I think Bobrovsky is a terrific signing, and $7 million, it's not breaking the bank.
It's not breaking the bank. And look, the Leafs are the team that brought in Anthony Stolarz, and he performed really well. When healthy, he's doing well. So they can find the goalies. Here's my issue, and I know that the main panel has been kind of throwing Craig Berube under the bus a little bit. They're saying they're giving up a lot of shots from the slot and a lot of. I'll say this: last year, the Leafs were 27th in goaltending in goals save above expectation. They did not get good goaltending by Stolarz and Wall. So they need.
Over there, he's right.
Finally. Like, you didn't get good goaltending, Chief. That's why. And now they have to make a difference.
He thought he was playing with me.
Cost coaches their job.
That's right. So I got your back. I got your back.
Played with one of them over there, and I coached one of them.
Yes, exactly.
Chief, you know what? Last year, Chief thought he was playing with me. That's what happened.
But they needed to upgrade in goal. The Leafs are seeing Florida getting better, Buffalo making the playoffs, Montreal always getting better, Ottawa getting in. They needed to upgrade in goal, and they did that with Bobrovsky.
What about Hildeby? Weeksy, is this it for Hildeby? Is he the guy that has to move out right now then?
I think he's the guy that has to move out. I go back to Chief. Chief, I know you can hear me. I go back to Chief when Akhtiamov made his NHL debut at UBS Arena. I talked to Chief before the game. He said, the guys love Akhtiamov. He plays hard. He's talented. He's gifted. This guy has a chance to be a really good goalie. That game against the Islanders, they got outshot 100 and something to whatever it was. He was unreal. And to Noodle's point, he was great in the postseason, Calder Cup, AHL MVP, and champion winner. I think that Hildeby has to get another opportunity elsewhere. Akhtiamov is the guy I'd be starting to reward right now with the Leafs, as Noodle said. Three-headed monster at some point this year. Give him some games.
Go ahead. I don't think we gave up that many shots. I think it was like 35 or something. Anyways,
it was 35
I'm trying to think back to it, but he played excellent.
It was 35 in the first period,
he's an excellent human being, great teammate. Moves extremely well in net and highly competitive. There's a lot of upside. The downside, he's not very big.
Right.
That's not very big. But
Stolarz and Bob, they're big. Those two are pretty big.
Hildeby's big as well, but now you've got
he's the beast.
Stolarz 4 more years, Bobrovsky 3 more years. Does that stop one of those two to get that?
You know what? You're worrying about this season, and he doesn't need waivers, Akhtiamov.
Yeah, so you're fine.
So you can put him in the AHL, and I keep coming back to the development situation. If you want him to play 50 games, do the formula. If it's 20 in the NHL and the other guys handle the rest, or if it's 50 in the NHL and then he plays 35 in the minors, to me, you've got an opportunity to develop the goaltender, and then you've got a 38-year-old, according to Gino, he's 114 years old, and then you've got Stolarz. So to me, you've got two veteran guys at the NHL level. This is the perfect pathway of their setting up their goaltending, if you can believe you can move Hildeby out.
Chief, let me put you on the spot here. Help me with some math here. So now you're looking at Akhtiamov, Sergei Bobrovsky, and Stolarz. If you got those three guys next year with an 84-game schedule, and you had your choice of how you would break up the number of games that you would use each of them without stunting Akhtiamov's growth, but at the same time using Bob when you need him and not forgetting about Stolarz, where would you draw the balance in games for each of those three?
Stolarz for the most part, I think. But I would try to get AA up there as much as I could to get some experience. Like, at some point, with the age and the injuries that happen with Stolarz, you're going to have to get him in there to play some games, which would be good for him, get the experience in the NHL.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what else the Leafs do here. I mean, they still have
big
money.
Big swings, though.
But this is a big swing.
Bobrovsky, big changes.
Like the number one goalie available, number one defenseman available. They're pushing their chips in here, right? Radish and Bob. Craig, Frankie, you guys standing by. Where do you stand on this signing into Toronto?
Okay, so there's obviously a little bit of risk associated with this, but for the Toronto Maple Leafs, they were going to have to calculate their risk accordingly. It was going to have to be Sergei Bobrovsky. You understand what that entails. Darren Radish, you know that maybe he's not going to be a 70-point guy the same way he was with Tampa Bay, but these are the big swings that the Toronto Maple Leafs are willing to make while Austin Matthews is here for 2 more years. And it feels like the days of kicking tires are gone. Like the tires are being changed in real time for Toronto, and I would imagine they would do more of the same as they try and keep up with the really competitive Atlantic Division.
Yeah, they're trying to stay in the fast lane, and if you want to stay in the fast lane, you can't run without tread, and certainly the Toronto Maple Leafs are right there. You think about Craig Berube talked about this is a retool. And if they had confidence in Hildeby and these guys, they wouldn't be signing Bobrovsky, trust me.
Right.
And that's 3 years down the road. I wouldn't even be worried about these guys. You're worried about right now. And John Chayka, since he's taken the job as general manager, we're talking about significant movement, significant changes. And he came in here to get the team retooled, and he's done exactly that.
Had no choice. He had no choice. He had to do it. And as far as both these goaltenders staying healthy, it felt like when Wall would get hurt, Stolarz would have to play a lot in a short period of time. Then Stolarz would get hurt. And then Wall would have to play a bunch in a short period of time. And then he would get hurt. So they have an opportunity to run this like a tandem right from day one and manage everyone's workload. And maybe they can find a way to get Anthony Stolarz 41 games and bring Sergei Bobrovsky down as well.
Well, Bobrovsky can also serve as that mentor. We talk about how hard he works, how competitive he is. And again, Toronto isn't worried about like where Hildeby will be in 3 years or where Akhmatov will be in 3 years. It's about the next 2 years with Austin Matthews.
Okay, so Sergei Bobrovsky on his way to Toronto, which means Mark Masters is waiting for him. And Mark, you have been on the other side of this battle many times in 23 when the Leafs played the Panthers in the playoffs, in 25 when they played the Panthers in the playoffs. What do you make of this news? Sergei Bobrovsky, starter for the Maple Leafs.
He was very good in those playoff series. He broke a lot of hearts here in Toronto during those playoff series. And I guess what comes to mind first is obviously the relationship he's already got with Anthony Stolarz. Stolarz has spoken so highly of Bobrovsky from the moment he got to Toronto, crediting him for helping him become a guy who could be in position to be a starter in the NHL. And really, it's the work ethic that you always hear about with Bobrovsky on top of his incredible talent is the fact that he's always putting himself in a position to be available. I thought it was really nice. Late in the year, Florida came through Toronto, and Bobrovsky made a point during the warm-ups of the game to share a moment with Artur Akhtiamov, who was with the Leafs. He was backing up in that game, and Akhtiamov is a young Russian goalie who has admired Bobrovsky for a long time, and he just congratulated him on signing a new deal with the Leafs. And Akhtiamov says that meant a lot to him, and now here he is potentially going to be a role model in another way for this young Toronto Maple Leafs goaltender prospect for the future who just had an amazing run in the Calder Cup playoffs. So seems like a good fit from that perspective, Brian.
So, Mark, answer this question, because this is the one that really matters. Who wears number 72, Sergei Bobrovsky or Gavin McKenna?
Interesting that you bring that up, because McKenna did his introductory news conference here on Saturday, and he was asked, are you sticking with 72? And he said, of course, I no plan on changing, because there's already been so many number 72 sweaters that have popped up. I was just at the draft in Buffalo, and everywhere you looked, there was a McKenna 72 Leafs jersey, and now, well, we know Bobrovsky, that's his number. That will be an intriguing storyline. We got player development camp, and McKenna will be talking here tomorrow when they have their first on-ice sessions, and I'm sure that may come up when we hear from him. I'm not sure. It's an interesting talking point for sure this offseason.
Absolutely. Great stuff, Mark. Thank you. There's Mark Masters down in Etobicoke outside of the Leafs front office. And again, Sergei Bobrovsky, number 72. He's always been 72. Yeah. McKenna's always been 72.
Can't even flip it to 27.
No,
that's not an option.
Up on the Raptors.
I think it's a simple transaction. The kid was drafted on Friday night, and everyone assumes he's getting 72. If Sergei Bobrovsky wants 72, there's a Rolex exchange, and that's how the deal goes. And I know the kid got it 1 week earlier.
The kid gets a Rolex for getting drafted and wearing 72 in junior?
I just think that's how it would go. I'm sure Bobrovsky knows that it's first overall. It's not just some plug that got drafted in the 4th round that wants 72. He's first overall. That's his number. If he wants to say, let's talk and negotiate, there's a Rolex exchange, and you get 72. That's the deal.
All right.
Johnny?
Yeah,
I don't know.
How about Bieber makes the call?
Part of me thinks
Maybe
like
we'll get
McKenna's
Bieber
going to be
on.
around a lot longer than Bobrovsky.
Yes, he is. But can he wait? Maybe he can wait. But
Yeah,
once
I mean,
all those
listen, Bob
jerseys
gets
are
it
sold,
over after him. He's always
Neither one's
favorite
played
goalie.
for Toronto. Bob would get it.
That's right.
Ty goes
Yes.
to the veteran and the Hall of Famer, not the guy who's first overall.
Right.
So Gavin, get rid of 72 and find something
All right,
else.
we'll
Just
see.
not 27.
What number is Colton Sissons? Because he
I'll tell you what
apparently
number
is
I
signed with
like.
the Leafs.
His bank account number.
Yes, Darren Dreger reporting that he's a Maple Leaf now, 2 years at $4.5 million per.
4.25 per.
4.25 million per.
That may never something, but I think that'd be total value, but that's per. Listen, he's a defensive guy. He knows exactly what you want. Coaches like reliability. Chief, you guys talk about, defensive zone face-off, defensive zone starts. We talked a lot last year, you and I, about trying to free up Austin Matthews to get more offensive zone starts, trying to limit what John Tavares has to do in his own end to transport it up. They don't want to do that. They're not as good at that.
Right-handed shots.
This guy can go in there and just eat up, chew up tough minutes and defensive zone starts, right?
Yeah, right-handed centerman is important for him. They didn't have one. Penalty kill, face-offs, defensive role. And he's a versatile guy, wing, center, whatever. So he's a bottom six player.
Okay. We have an update on Jersey Gate in Florida when Bob originally went there. Frank Petrano was 72.
Yeah.
Bottle of wine, hamburger. What was the other one, Billy? And a Rolex. Oh, there you go.
There
it was
you
a
go.
Rolex. So a Rolex, bottle of wine, and a hamburger for
His
some
Petrano
reason.
been in the NHL already, though.
Yeah, that's
Might-
right.
Might just cut it off with the hamburger.
Yeah, we'll see.
Just to steer clear of the watch.
Well,
Or
we're
you
going to
just
find
go
out
in
that
there and
news.
take it.
Yeah, exactly. That
That's
could
what you would have
happen.
done.
You'd walk right in there and
That's
say,
what you're
that's
doing.
my number.
You got my number. Sorry, kid.
Yeah, you're out.
You can
I
have
give
it
Gavin
3 years.
McKenna full permission if he wants to switch from 72 to
Don't
92.
Don't say it.
Yes.
I think
That's
it would
a
be
big endorsement.
fantastic. That would be fantastic.
That's a big, big endorsement. So the big signings, they're officially starting to come in, including
Alex
Sergei
Nylander allow it?
Bobrovsky signing a 3-year deal
want his brother
in
Alex.
Toronto.
Connor to the backhand, what a save by the glove of Bobrovsky. Tremendous stop.
Bobrovsky's left pad gets back and takes one away from Nyes.
Great save by Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky would not be fooled. Bobrovsky got a piece of that. What a stop by Bobrovsky.
Are professional grade.
Specialty.
In theaters now.
You get the good stuff.
The CFL will be back with Thursday Night Football as the Argonauts take on the Stampeders at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. Catch all the action on TSN. We are more than 2 hours into free agent frenzy. Sergei Bobrovsky, who was at the top of our list, has now officially been removed from that list. He is a Maple Leaf, 3 years at $7 million. More and more signings continuing to come in, and a lot of big names still out there. And to give us the latest, we head over to the Breakers and Gord Miller.
You can't always win the off-season trophy and be successful the following year. There's lots of examples of teams that didn't, but CJ, fair to say the Toronto Maple Leafs on day one of free agency have made the biggest splashes.
Absolutely, and really I draw back a week or two to when they traded for Darren Radish's rights and signed him to a big contract extension, taking him away from being open on a day like this one. But getting Sergei Bobrovsky, Radish, adding a little bit to the forward group where they felt they had some holes with Colton Sissons and Jack Roslovic. This is a team that is drastically different than the one that John Chayka took over just, 6-7 weeks ago. And, I don't think it's going to stop here. The Leafs can still nibble around the edges with some other players. We'll see where everything goes with the Zach Werenski talks or any other trade activity that might pop up. Even Morgan Rielly is a possibility still to be dealt out later this summer from the Maple Leafs. So, for someone coming in, trying to get the team back to better footing, the proof will be in where it goes, but I think that they've certainly been pretty happy with how it's gone so far.
Now, the contrast, Pierre, is their arch rivals, the Montreal Canadiens, who have really focused on building from within and building their own foundation, and a foundational piece signs.
Yeah, Ivan Demidov, a massively important extension for the Montreal Canadiens. They get 1 year ahead of it, and they get him for $9.15 million a year. Look at their young core now. They don't have a single player, any of their young stars, in double digits for the foreseeable future, from Caulfield to Slafkovsky. Lane Hudson already under $9 million a year looks like a bargain. This is the key for Montreal, is making sure they took care of their core first. They're disappointed they haven't been able to make a trade over the last couple of weeks. They had interest in Mason Marchment as well, but this was a priority for them to get Demidov signed.
Now, meantime, Darren, we've been talking about, and we've seen some blockbuster trades in the last month in the NHL, some real earthquake deals. We're waiting on more, and we're still waiting.
Correct. I mean, I felt like there were at least 5 principal pieces that were in play, weren't sure that any of it was going to materialize on this day. You look at Dylan Larkin, Vinny Trocheck, Darnell Nurse for the Edmonton Oilers, Zach Werenski, we've talked a lot about, and maybe Connor Hellebuck of the Winnipeg Jets. But, through all of these, the majority of them are under contract. And you start with Dylan Larkin. I think that Steve Yzerman of the Detroit Red Wings made it very, very clear that they're not making a deal to appease Dylan Larkin because he made a trade request. It has to be in the best interest of the Red Wings. So that has the feel of a marathon to it. Maybe Rielly is another example of that. So then you tick closer down the box, and you've got Werenski, who they're trying to calm things down there as well. And the Winnipeg Jets, there was more of a pressure point going into the draft weekend because those primary picks were in play. Lots of conversation with Buffalo and whatnot. Things might materialize, but again, Hellebuck is under contract. So today was more about getting things locked down in free agents.
So for lots of star players, for lots of unrestricted free agents, the phone rang a lot and deals were signed. But now comes the hard part for a lot of players who aren't signed. The phone might not ring for a very long time.
All right, thank you, boys. And you mentioned some of the players who have already signed throughout the NHL, some of the Canadian teams who have been active, and one of them would be the Winnipeg Jets, and one of those players would be Stuart Skinner, and he joins us now. He's on his way back to Canada. Stuart, congrats. Take us through this. You played in the Canadian market before. You're going back to a Canadian market. Why were you excited to do that? Okay. This is like overdrive now. Now I'm familiar with this. We're having technical issues.
Came back for the good cell service.
Technical issues. We'll get him back. We'll get him back. But
it's a heck of a question.
I thought it was pretty good.
Locked and loaded.
I thought it was a pretty good way to kind of launch into the playing time stuff. We'll get him back in just a moment.
Yeah.
Oh, he's good. Should we get back to him?
Yeah. Let's give it another shot.
There he is. Stuart, can you hear us? Yes, I can. Awesome. Apologies. Yeah, no problem. So take us through your thought process here, joining Winnipeg on a 2-year deal.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm extremely excited to be a Jet. You know, going back to Canada, it's a thrill. Obviously, just like you mentioned, I've been part of that, you know, the Canadian market for a decent amount of time. So yeah, it's just what an exciting moment. I'm so happy to be a part of that organization. And you look all the way from the top, and from ownership, management, coaches, the amazing team that they have, the teammates that I'm going to have the privilege of working with. It's very special for me.
Well, you're known as a workhorse in the NHL. You've played a lot of games over the last handful of years. Now you're going to Winnipeg. What have they told you about playing time and what the plan is when it comes to how many starts you're planning on getting?
Yeah, haven't gotten a ton of information on that. For me, I'm just really looking forward to growing my game and, you know, continuing my work of becoming a better goalie. So for me, that's what was truly important for me. You know, being able to work with Wade, you know, the goalie coach there, Flats, and I'm so excited to be working with him. And as of right now, being able to be a teammate of Connor Hellebuyck, best goalie in the world. So that's, you know, that's going to be able to really give me some amazing information and really work on my game. And that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Well, Hellebuyck, like you said, Vezina winner, Hart Trophy winner. You're planning on being his teammate. You said you looked up to him. He's a big guy. I mean, the idea of that being a tandem, what would your message be to Jet fans, the idea of Hellebuyck, Skinner going, you know, back and forth next season?
Yeah, that's extremely exciting for me. That puts a smile on my face for sure. I mean, for myself, I can just talk personally, and being able to work with a guy like that, it's, I mean, what an amazing man I could work with. I've only heard good things about him as a person, as a father, as a husband, and for me to work with somebody at a prestigious level that he's at, you know, the amount of information I can get, you know, I would just fully be a sponge and get as much info as I can, and I think that would be, you know, that would really help me out. You know, being able to work with somebody like that, and again, working with Flats, and just the type of culture that Winnipeg truly brings.
Well, congrats. I know people in Winnipeg very excited to have you in town. So enjoy the summer. Good luck in Winnipeg. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You got it. There's Stuart Skinner, newest member of the Winnipeg Jets. And listen, the Hellebuyck noise, it's probably not going to die down. You know, once we get further into the summer, Dylan Larkin, Zach Werenski, you know, a lot of signings, some trades, but a lot of the big names still out there.
Winnipeg fans, I bet, would be cautiously optimistic. They're probably thinking, it's just going to be our tandem, Hellebuyck and Stuart Skinner. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Formidable tandem. But then they're also wondering, is Hellebuyck going to be exiting stage left? So quite the situation there for the fans in Winnipeg.
I mean, he's a guy to root for.
Yeah, he is.
Stuart Skinner.
Really
I mean,
easy guy to like.
And sort of maybe the right guy to be in that situation where Hellebuyck might be up in the air for a little while, and it won't sort of phase him, and he'll be the right mentality. And just, I keep thinking the Toronto Maple Leafs have sort of been one of the busier teams today, and just the idea of like they took some swings, Roslovic, Sissons, Bob. Radish. You know, there's $25 million. All this money they had to spend, they spent it. We knew they were going to. They're different. If it all works, they're better. But it all has to work. There's not a lot of guarantees for some of the age of these guys and what they're going to ask them to do.
Where do you stand on that, Craig?
Toronto had a great day, in my opinion. What they've done going forward here, starting with Radish and Bob today, Sissons. I mean, their team's improved, and I thought they did a great job. And obviously, Florida put themselves in a great spot too.
I think I like Montreal getting an 8-year for Demidov. I think that's an outstanding play to have that kind of talent, young talent at that number for that duration. Of course, they've got to align him with someone right now. So I'm really interested what the future holds, you know, especially in Columbus, right? Whether it's Marchenko, what's going to happen there, even Werenski. So a lot on the plate, a lot on the docket as we move forward.
There's a lot of teams that know very specifically stuff they want. Minnesota wants a second-line center. Montreal needs a second-line center. San Jose, they got Trouba, they might need a defenseman. Still not done. There's still so much, whether it's signing or trades that have to happen for teams to try to get themselves where they want.
I'm a little surprised by Ottawa as well. I mean, they've got the cap space and they were able to get Eklund, which, of course, I love that play to be able to have a creative forward like that. But certainly the Burakovsky move is kind of a bit of a head scratcher for me in terms of bringing him at $5.5 million. And then you've got Giroux still waiting out there, who's sort of that leader. You know, you lost Brady Tkachuk, so he's a leader. He's a role player. He can go in the dot and win you face off. So really interested to see what happens with Giroux.
Yeah, and some of those vets, like the big names, are still out there. Yeah. Giroux's out there. Patrick Kane is still out there. You know, some of those older players. John Carlson still available. So more coverage still to come. Thank you to everyone. It's been a blast.
All right, Hazy.
It's been great. Thank you for putting up with me.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Standing ovation. We're not going anywhere. Coverage continues on TSN's YouTube channel, up on tsn.ca, up on SportsCenter. Sergei Bobrovsky, he's a Maple Leaf. Maple Leafs have been incredibly active. There's Stuart Skinner. He's off to Winnipeg. There's been a lot of action today. Again, coverage continuing up on tsn.ca. We send it now to TSN at the World Cup.
Thankfully, because we don't want to see penalties
Look, so the little
for this
bit of
kind of
contact
thing.
here with the defender, right? But he throws his leg into the goalkeeper. Watch his leg here. Watch. He kicks the goalie. Look, kicked him on purpose.
It's not a dive, though.
Well, it is a dive because he's diving over to kick his leg at the same time.
No.
It is a clear dive. And he should have been booked.
It's not a dive.
It should have been.